Man, this is so nice. Let me ask you something.
You can ask me anything, Dave.
You are awesome. You know, this is so weird. You are like the coolest guy. But a lot of people say that you're batshit crazy.
They're not wrong. You know what's more destructive than a nuclear bomb? Words.
Welcome to the Technically Secured podcast. My name's Mike.
Hi, I'm Emma.
This is episode 57, Ask Me Anything.
And today we've got some special guests with us.
Yeah, so we're joined by the Snake Eyes squad, Steve and Paul. Welcome along, guys.
G'day, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming.
We're going to preface this with a few caveats for this conversation. It is going to be a slightly detoured version of one of our episodes if you're listening along at home.
Yeah, so if you're used to us being succinct and to the point, then that's probably not going to happen. But
Slick and professional, and those sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what podcast you're all listening to, but that's clearly not ODSEC.
really not.
So we are dabbling with some new audio gear that our patrons have helped us acquire. So you're probably going to notice some weird audio stuff, which I will try and make it the best of in post. So if there's a little bit of echo or anything like that, I apologise in advance. We should also say the episode may not be 100% PG.
We're going to work on trying to keep the swearing to a minimum, but we can't guarantee it.
No, and I'll just have to make sure I tick the right box for iTunes when I do the upload if we go past the limit of 3.
I apologise in advance. That will be me.
Come on, man. We build army lists with a rule of 3. Can you not do it now? So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to have a quick chat about some of the releases and the new stuff that's been coming out. And then we're going to dive straight back into the topic. No pauses, no breaks. And this was an episode that wasn't our brainchild.
No, it wasn't. So I believe it was Paul's brainchild who chatted about it with Steve, who sent me a message and... Oh, actually, no, we chatted about it at Masters.
Yeah, chatted at Masters, yeah.
And so then said, would we be up for it? And I was like, hey, if we don't have to think of content, works for me.
So Steve and Paul have been snooping along behind our backs, asking questions of the community. They had to make their own Facebook group that neither of us was in.
Yeah, if anyone can find a Facebook group anywhere that's to do with Warhammer that Mike's not in, let us know, because we just could not find one.
Surely hasn't infiltrated the Snake Eyes squads just yet.
Well, he's in all our events, so actually...
Yeah. It's a slow burn project of mine to slowly claw my way through those barriers.
I'm not sure that it's very slow, to be honest.
Oh, it is very slow. It's they invited me. I said yes, so that's how slow it is. It's
Yeah.
on invite. No, I actually discovered today I'm a member of the Death Guard group on Facebook. I have no idea why, because I don't play Death Guard, but I am. So someone's added me at some point.
Sure you're not Alpha Legion? You've got to have fingers in all those pies. Many heads everywhere.
There's a few of them I've left over the years, but anyone who's been on Facebook for any period of time knows that some of those groups aren't the greatest they're positive experiences. So some of them I've voluntarily gone, oh, why did you add me to this? I don't want to be here anymore. But
Very few and far between.
Yeah, there's a lot that I'm still part of.
Yeah.
Most of them are just muted. But what we're going to do is we're going to cover a few bits and pieces.
So what's new? We haven't really... Oh, we had our last varsity night for the year.
Yeah, we did. We had...
That was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it highlighted some interesting parts of my thought processes that... I'm a big picture kind of person.
Not everything was detailed perfectly.
No.
Yeah, no. So we had this idea around codex speed dating. We can't call it just speed dating because that got people excited for all the wrong reasons.
Yes, it did.
So codex speed dating, the idea was that people would come along and they would bring their army and then play the first turn with their particular army, and then they would have some brief notes. Everyone would move tables, and then you'd be able to pick up the brief notes, and looking only at those brief notes, you would be able to play with the next army and the one after that and the one after that.
Yeah.
Sounds good in theory, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was harder than anticipated.
Look, I think in theory, it works, but it highlighted a bunch of stuff that you kind of take for granted as a tournament player when you pick up an army.
Your army really well as well.
And it wasn't even like most of the really experienced players in the room. You can look at a stat line, you can look at a weapon profile, and you can kind of play the game. It was more stuff like wound counters and
who goes first.
Who goes first? Yeah, we ended up using the AOS who goes first process,
which makes for interesting results. By
yes,
the way,
it does.
Suddenly, someone's getting 2 turns in a row, which that's quite frightening.
But the thing is, because no one knows who went first when you get to the next
no
table,
one knows who whether they have had 2 turns
it was
row.
quite an interesting one. So I don't know whether there needs to be something on the table that who had last turn, or or even just a record on the score sheet. I don't know, but. We had a couple of the players in the night going, we need to do a tournament like this. And I went, oh, Christ, that'd be...
And a few other people going, yeah, I'm not playing this ever again.
Yeah, it was an interesting experiment.
It was great fun.
I'm really pleased that no one brought, like, Gene Stealer Cult or anything like...
100 and something orcs was pretty hard.
Yeah. Although, to be fair to that particular player, he did lose, like, half of them in turn 1.
I know. I was turn 2. I lost the other half.
But they've all got the same stats, so it's so easy to remember.
Yeah, it's just you don't get a save. Your opponent rolls dice and you remove models.
Well, that army didn't get tabled.
How?
Because there were 100 and something to start with.
No, it was running and hiding in later turns. It didn't get tabled. I don't think anyone did.
No.
The Drakari one got close.
Yeah, that guy's going pretty badly.
Yeah, there was. I actually watched one turn because the two players, the guy playing the guard didn't know guard, and the guy playing Drakari didn't know Drakari. And it just happens that Drakari is one of my primary armies, and I've played a lot of guard games against Richard. And so they've gone, oh, what's the Demolisher Cannon stat? I've gone this, and he's gone, cool, Overwatch, and blown a Venom one shot on Overwatch, and then turned around in his own shooting phase and down to Ravager in like the next consecutive shooting phase. So there's one Demolisher, and not even a commander, just a stock Demolisher.
Jeez.
Has destroyed 2 of the 4 vehicles the Dark Elder army had in one turn.
And then proceeded to charge the third one.
Yeah, he did.
Kill it in close combat.
It was
which
amazing.
Was just amazing.
And that's why running 3 demolishers with chapter approved now.
He the third Venom only had 1 wound left, and so he charged it with the Demolisher and went 3 attacks hitting on 6s, wounding on 3s, 4 up armor save. I only need to do 1 wound, and he actually got 2 hits, 2 wounds.
Well, we were all trying to tell him, no, it's got fly. You can't tie it up from.
And he's going,
shooting.
no, I'm going to kill it, and he did. So that was entertaining.
Determination.
I actually went through today while I was doing some of the prep work for this recording and worked out the winner.
Mm-hmm. Who was it?
Was Shane. Now, I always get the acronym wrong for his team.
DICS.
Yeah.
Dice in Combat Squad.
Yeah.
That's right,
Yeah.
So he because the mission was very simple. It was basically hold more and kill more hold more and kill 1 every turn. And out of a possible 10 points for the 5 turns we played, he got 9 across his 5 games.
Was there an army that won as well?
Well, his was Death Guard, so his army also got the highest battle points of any of them. So
he did kill 99 orcs.
Yeah,
so
he
that's
did.
how he got his kill.
All right, yeah.
But he Varsity and Caleb at the team at Varsity Project Morley. Thank you very much for hosting us for this year, and we're going to get a prize out to Shane for persevering through that night's games and scoring the most victory points. What else have we had? We've all had chapter approved in our hot little hands. I know yours rocked up, like you opened it when you walked through the door at our house tonight.
That's Steve.
Yep. Mine rocked up today as well.
Have you opened it?
Yes, I opened it today.
When you should have been working?
No, it was on. I opened the box because I needed to get the red gobbo out. He's just up here on top of the computer in bits, along with all like Christmas ornaments. I'm going to draw holes in tomorrow, and we got chapter approved today and the red gobbo. So I don't think we've talked chapter approved on the podcast yet, though. Because
I don't believe so.
So have you guys actually had a chance to look at it at all?
I've had a small look, and the main takeaway for me is Lemonos demolishers are insanely cheap now.
They are.
I think they're down to about 135 points with a heavy bolter.
Ouch.
Yeah.
127 points because it's the exact same price as a Vindicator with a Stormbolter.
Yes, it is.
Which
You're
is
right.
making me very, very upset because I've got 3 Vindicators and they're nowhere near as good as Paul's Demolishers.
That's 127 without the heavy bolter, so you have to have that tax on there,
But
unfortunately.
yours is BS3, his is BS4.
Yeah, but he fires twice as many shots.
Mine has 2d6 shots.
Yeah, fair enough. But you know what you do? Oh no, he can do that as well. Never mind. I was just thinking.
He's
like,
also got one more wound.
with the extra range thing. I've actually seen a lot of. Is it Vostrian that give the extra range?
Yeah.
Vostrian demolishers are a thing.
Because they can shoot turn 1
Yeah.
without moving.
Well, they can move half, and then they've got is it a 30-inch range?
Yeah, so 35-inch throughout range with Austrian.
Which is
Yes,
pretty dangerous.
He can move 5 and
Shoot
a
30.
PS4. I can move 5 and shoot a PS4 as well because I suffer penalties for moving and shooting.
Yeah, but you can move 10 as well and still shoot at full BS.
Yes, but it means in turn 1 I'm never shooting full ballistic skill.
Yeah, well, excuses. So, anything else?
Necron Heavy Destroyers, which is
They're
like
cheaper
Christmas
than a
for me.
standard destroyer
Yeah,
now.
37 points, which is making me giggle. I've gone and
Yeah, but the flip side of that is you have to use those dodgy fine cast.
I hate the
conversion
fine cast
kits.
ones. I went looking for the metal ones as soon as the
Yeah.
rumors started coming out. The metal ones price went through the roof.
Yep.
So I bit the bullet and bought the fine cast ones, and
They're horrible.
atrocious.
Yeah, they are.
Just awful. But
I've seen a
needs
few
must.
people get a piece of brass rod and then basically tack glue.
That's exactly what I did
The,
with mine with a paperclip, which is nice and stiff. It doesn't work.
No, like that. No, you get like 2 mil brass rod
Oh wow.
and then run it along the top and the bottom of the runners of the
Yep.
thing, glue it on, and then heat it up, and then put it in the set it so that it's straight, and then put it in the freezer and pop the super glue off and get the brass rod off, so that way you can get it straight, heat it so that it is set straight, and then cool it down naturally, let it go cold, and then put it in the freezer to pop the super glue.
I did that and just left the bar glued on, and it's still not straight.
Jesus.
So it's okay. There are better hobbyists out there than me, but bloody hell, this is hard work.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, we were talking about the Red Gobbo and the Christmas release, which was the White Dwarf,
Yeah, the Mechanical White Dwarf.
who's only available for like 3 days in store, like Boxing Day, and then the 20 through to the
Yeah, it's like-
29th, I think it is.
But is it available Boxing Day or is
Yeah,
it
it is.
available the?
I thought it
well,
was
27th.
24th to Boxing Day.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd read
through
that
the-
Boxing Day wasn't happening on Boxing Day; it was happening on the 27th.
Well, through the magic of the internet and me being on a laptop at the moment, I can look.
Because I'm worried, because I'm leaving on Boxing Day and I really want to get my hands on that bad boy.
I'm sure we can.
I'm sure somebody will be
Yeah, I'm
available.
sure we
to
can
pick
work
that
that
up for
out.
you.
If I tried and drag my wife into a Warhammer store on Boxing Day sales, I might just get shot.
Yeah, I haven't
Do you know
gone that far
Boxing Day
yet.
sales is my thing?
So
Not necessarily in a Warhammer store, I'll admit, but
Tech
yeah.
Piece Grumbendale will be available exclusively at Warhammer and Games Workshop stores starting right after Christmas between Thursday the 26th and Sunday the 29th of December. If your local store runs out, you can still order him in store until December 29th.
Oh, okay, and it does say some stores will be closed on Boxing Day,
Yeah,
but I think all of the WA stores are open, aren't they?
yeah, they usually are. So yeah, you can actually get him on Boxing Day if you're
What
feeling.
time do you fly out?
Not till like 11 o'clock, so plenty of time.
11 o'clock in the evening?
Yeah, okay, you'll be fine.
Otherwise, you are
That's
cutting
yeah,
that
3
far.
hours before the
Nah, the joys of living 5 minutes from Freo, just straight down.
Yeah, you'll be good.
He's actually a really cool model. He's they've done a Tech Priest version of him for this particular release, and he's even got a Goblin
I like the
Gretchen
goblin.
servitor with him, which is kind of cool. I also like the fact they've given him Call's legs. I don't know if you looked at the sculpt, but he's actually got these little feet.
like crab feet.
Yeah,
sort of thing,
coming out from under the coming out from under his robe. He's got the same little.
Ooh, that looks good.
I really like that. Rather than just making him a dwarf in a cape with an axe, they've actually gone, no. Here's a proper tech priest.
He's
Like,
that real unsettling tech priest aesthetic.
It's the cable beard that does it for me. That's brilliant.
The cable mustache. That's where it's at.
I actually reckon you'll see a lot of use for him as the tech priest? Is it the Dominus, the big fat-bellied one that came with?
The manipulus.
Yes,
I
the
believe,
manipulator. That's the one. I reckon that's what you'll see him used as, because that base looks pretty significant. But you can't buy the manipulus separately, as far as I'm aware at the moment. He was
Blackstone?
he was a kill team.
Nice kill team.
Same as things like the Kellamorph. You can't buy that at the moment. That kill team box is out of production, and that model's not available. And I assumed they'd be those sorts of models, those two in particular, would be Christmas releases, and here we are with no ability to buy them.
I mean, that's pretty common these days. I think of all the Blackstone Fortress models that are really useful that you just can't get anymore.
Well, the Blackstone one, I mean, they want you to buy the game, obviously. Occasionally you see them on eBay where people buy the box and then hack it up and split it. That's how I got the Ranger, because I wasn't interested in the game, but I wanted the Ranger. Yeah.
That's exactly what we did, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yep, we as a team divvied up, and I can't remember who had to take the Elder because I didn't collect Elder at the time. Or who got stuck with the Elder Ranger.
Somehow you lucked out and got both the guy with the flaming chainsword and
the Fat Priest.
Yes.
The remake of Archconfessor.
Is that the joy of being the person who organises it?
I wasn't the person who organised it. I don't know how I managed that one.
So we've had that release previewed 24 hours ago, 36 hours ago, something like that. Hopefully he's plastic, because we were saying, which was the whole point of this originally, was is he going to be Finecast? Because none of us particularly want Finecast, particularly not off the back of that sort of stuff you've had with the Destroyers and
Canoness Viridian was a
nightmare. She was last year or the year before.
Last year's one, yeah. Great, lovely model. I love that they redid the Blanche design, but God,
I'm always torn with John Blanche's art. I've never been a big fan of that style of art. So I appreciate what they've done, because I've played Sisters since second ed and I've got those codexes and where that artwork comes from. So I get what it is and why it is, but the artwork does nothing for me.
It was all over third edition, which is when I started.
Yeah, which is heavy Blanche.
Blanche, and I loved it. And that's what got me into the hobby.
See, second ed was all Mark Gibbons, which is why the new Mephiston model, where he's wiping his lips, everyone's going, he's sniffing his finger, and I'm going, no. The artwork is he's literally wiping blood off his bottom lip because he's a vampire. But it does look like he's sniffing his finger, which doesn't do the model any favours.
That's what I thought it was as well, to be honest.
It's a really nice recreation, but
the photos have not helped it either, because you can't tell how that hand is posed. Like, is it actually up against his chin like it is in the art? Or because of the angles of the photo, you just go, it looks like he's sniffing his finger, and that just...
And it doesn't help when people add the memes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Which,
Well, it was like the Klavex in the canoe with his two-handed...
Yeah, and the trampoline suppressors as well.
And that's obviously a routine thing now. But
it's a good part of the hobby as well.
Yeah,
having a good laugh.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to take yourselves a little bit less seriously. Though I'm saying that Mephiston's quite interesting, because he seems to be the first named character that actually has an alternative pose. If not, it is just a hand swap.
Well, he's that particular model's a second ed release. The original metal one has been around a long time now. It's only predated by a handful of other models, Ragnar Blackmane, the Phoenix Lords. Dante is the same era. Dante is the same release as Mephiston, but
it's all the old 2D models that had that flat pose,
and that was to do with how the sculpting in metal was back in the day.
Actually, we should point out Aaron Jaw's Mephiston conversion Primaris before this one came out. He did about a year ago. It's just gorgeous.
There's a few different. There was a third party one they did as well that I saw released that I know a few people bought because they just wanted the bigger, cooler Mephiston. I'm just going to get a photo of it on screen now so I can show Emma sniffing Mephiston.
No, Aaron. That was when I think his first time that he did a making of video.
Yeah,
which I shamelessly aped for Masters this year.
Well, no, it's. I'm hoping that means we are going to see, like, we've obviously got Jane Czar, who's now been redone as well in plastic. Ragnar Blackmane, please give me Primaris Ragnar Blackmane. He is one of the oldest. He might even be the oldest metal model still in production today.
He's got the old chunky bolt pistol from memory. The old school, he's really old. And
he used to have Wolverine feet. He used to have pop-out blades that popped out the bottom of his feet in the he actually even had rules for it in Rogue Trader in second ed, where he got to make additional attacks at the end of the combat phase because he had these claws that popped out the bottom of his boots. And if you look at the model, he's even got them modelled,
that's pretty cool.
like little wolf claws around the soles of his feet. But that model's now really showing it. I mean, the Phoenix Lords are bad. He's worse.
I'm just thinking I was born in 92. It probably predates me.
Shut up.
No, absolutely. He's older than us.
Yeah. Potentially.
Did you just say that so that you can point out that you're younger than us?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
our ages together. Do you reach you guys? Or?
I've just got
they're banned from all of our events.
Look, I'll just give them big penalties in the score. So I've just got the artwork here for Emma to have a look at for Mephiston, because this is the artwork I know the model to be based on. You can see him kind of wiping his chin of the blood and the vamp, and it's a really faithful recreation. It's a really gorgeous sculpt, but the amount of people, because they've, instead of having that index finger curled like he's sort of running his glove across his lips, they've left it pointing, And I think that's the issue.
That's what's making it stand out, yeah.
I don't think it looks like he's smelling his finger. I think it looks like he's rubbing his nose.
Look.
I think he's just got a bit of a cold.
Even superhumans get cold sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
We need some vitamin C.
apparently in the Blood of Baal story, it actually talks about they discover why the Blood Angels have the Black Rage.
Oh, right.
It's to do with Karbanda and
What, the psychic curse?
no, the bloodthirster that basically almost kills Sanguinius on Cygnus Prime, and then he beats at the Gates of Terror. When all the Blood Angels go bonkers on Cygnus Prime, it wasn't the death of Sanguinius that triggers it; it was the curse of the demon. And apparently they figure it out because Sanguinius basically confronts Karbanda and falls to the Black Rage again, despite him meant to be. I haven't read the book yet, but I got told this third hand, so who knows if it's right.
We just made some random stuff up.
Well, who knows? I get given a lot of stuff by nature of what we do. Anything else that you guys have noticed in the last couple of weeks of hobby? I mean, we obviously had the Slaves to Darkness release as well, with the giant crocodile monster for.
Yeah, that's making it tough not to get into AOS.
It's such
I've
a
got
good
enough
model.
Systems as is, but that's pretty nice.
It's I don't know what I'd use it for. I just like it. It's just a cool giant crocodile monster.
Lord Discordant, maybe?
I don't know how big it is. That's the question I've got. I mean, we've had
That raises that modelling for advantage question.
yeah.
Again.
Well, and I mean, we can have a quick conversation about that now because we're going to talk
A quick conversation about modelling for advantage.
penitent engines. Now,
All right, let's keep this brief. But yes,
Yeah.
this is a particularly
well,
poignant
you
one,
actually brought this to us a little while ago, and I actually took this to one of the TO groups I'm part of on Facebook because we were actually talking about doing like a standardized basing guide as a community of TOs to then start moving the community towards being on current bases. And there's pros and cons to that, and I won't get into that here, but we were having this conversation, and then someone said, oh, it's just ridiculous, rah, rah, rah. They should all just be updating their bases. And I went, okay, cool. How do we handle the penitent engine? And he went, what do you mean? And I said, well, unlike every other Games Workshop release to date, literally, I can't think of another one that does this, it got smaller and it went down in base size.
And significantly as well.
Yeah, like it's a good quarter-inch shorter, and the base went from a 60 to a 50 as far as I can tell.
And those toes on that penitent engine are right out on the edge.
Yeah, you'd basically end up having to do a, and I said this to someone else today, selectively modelled base, so that you can kind of have bits sticking out to make it stand.
It's like a rock, like a wide piece of slate or something that stands on it.
Which just, for me as a hobbyist, that I don't like doing that.
You and
it also makes it hard to measure and all sorts.
Yeah, I was thinking measuring becomes difficult, but also, do you want it hanging over the edge? Because
it changes its centre of balance and everything. Yeah. Although
chips and.
I mean, and that was funny because
it's not a fine cast, so it's less of an issue if it falls over, but still.
It breaks the floor rather than breaking the model. Yeah.
It was funny though because all these TOs suddenly, like there was it was 100 comments or something. I've gone, so what are we doing about penitent engines? What's the problem? Well, they're smaller and they've gone down in base size. And the first comment, who is a very prominent TO in the American circuit, went, well, shit. And the conversation just died because no one went, what do we do? Because we've spent the last 3 years of 8th edition saying when the new model comes out, you have to, the Greater Demons are a great example. The Lord of Change,
the huge change
went from piddly to enormous. And even we were having the conversation around the modelling for advantage base size thing, and they had the Avatar down as a 40 mil base. And I said, okay.
The Forge World one.
I said, okay, what happens if I've got the Forge World one? And they went, well, what base does that come on? I said, 60. And they went, are you sure? And I went, yeah.
When you've got an extra inch on there.
Well, and he actually has auras, and he has he also has a stratagem you can play on him to affect other units. So being on a 60 mil base is actually an impact. And at that point, does that mean I can put a standard Avatar on a 60 mil base?
Yeah, right.
So,
or your original,
or my rogue trader
base.
one who's infantry sized on a 60 mil base and have him running around.
And you need to get your magnifying glass out to find the actual model on the base.
Yeah.
Because there's also Emma had a point about these old models they have a shelf life and they get retired. My pendant engines arrived last week, new from Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Because you did the last chance to buy
3 of them because I love the model, and it's just now that you.
Well, ironically,
really
now you want 4. Now you want a 4th. because the squads
I
are 1 to 4.
bought a fourth.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Just
to
in
make life more
case,
difficult for
yeah.
myself.
No, well, when you build them, you'll understand why.
Yeah, apparently the worst models. I mean,
No, the Thunderfire cannon in metal was horrific.
I've done one of them. That's pretty bad.
Only one worse, and I can only think of one worse, is the Chaos Hell Cannon from Warhammer Fantasy Battle from a few years ago.
A few years ago.
Okay, it's more than a few years ago.
Yeah, it's more than a few years
It's
ago.
probably 4th ed 40k.
Yeah, I didn't recognize that model at all, so it was probably a bit more than a few years ago.
So it's basically a Chaos Dwarf Thunderfire cannon. But instead of it being a little titchy cannon, think of a cannon that is the size of a dreadnought. And it's 2 solid pieces of metal in half down the middle of the barrel. So you have to push the left-hand side and the right-hand side together. And then you've got like 4 different braces to hold it up, and then it's on wheels, and then it's got chains attached to it. And the amount of green stuff required, because those 2 barrel sections don't line up, because instead of doing a front and a back, they've done a left and a right. It's on top.
Scam to sell more green stuff.
It's also covered in skulls for part of it, so the skulls don't line up, and it's go and Google Chaos Dwarf Hell Cannon and consider that model for a moment, and then bear in mind I've built one of them and wanted to hurt myself afterwards. It was so bad.
So, and just give thanks for how far we've come since then.
Yeah.
Give me a plastic Hell Cannon, like that'd be great. It was a fantastic model. It used to eat your own crew. You used to roll to see what it did when you chose to fire it, and if you rolled a misfire, it would eat the crew. And then once it had eaten the crew, it would try and charge across the battlefield, eating other units.
That's great.
It was
I love it.
amazing. It was a cannon that was really good in combat. So you actually had people purposefully advancing it, because if the crew ever died, it automatically counted as going berserk. So you'd have them deploying the crew at the front of it, trying to get them to take the hits first, because they only got hit in a 5 or a 6, and then you'd trying to have this cannon come charging across the table to kill you.
Okay, so
awesome.
now you've been for a nice little wander down memory lane.
I like these ones.
That I'm not 100% sure how you started on it.
Not
but
quite
that's
sure either.
okay. Have we finished with what's happening in the news?
Well, I'm going to go back to the pennant engines for a second and say Steve can use his 60mm based pennant engines, because at the moment they have no auras. They can't go up in ruins, so they can't block off space for the ruins. I can't come up with any other conceivable scenario where their base size is actually impactful. Obviously there is a little bit of an impact on it, but it's nothing like when you have auras or infantry that can occupy difficult spaces to operate within.
They're also still available.
No, they're not. These ones are...
That was the last
Yeah.
sprint run.
Yeah.
Just to throw
I've actually got one.
Yeah, just to throw a spanner in that works. There's also the new type of penitent engine.
The mortifier.
Mortifiers?
Yep.
Can I use them as mortifiers?
No, because the mortifiers have different payloads.
What if I armed them and converted them?
No,
Why?
Damn.
because they're a penitent engine. The mortifiers are a new unit. They've never had a model.
What happens if he converts the pilot to be the same as the mortifier?
I'm not going to tell him that you can arm the mortifier as a penitent engine.
I was going to say you can run it with twin heavy flamer and it's exactly the same.
And buzzsaws.
Buzzsaws, yeah.
No,
Glad we didn't have that discussion.
at that point, I'd still be saying no. I'd still be saying you need to run them as penitent engines, because that's what the model was.
I think out of spite, I'm going to use the metal one and put it on a 50mm base.
You put them on a 50mm base, I'll let you use them as a mortifier.
They'll fall over and break other people's
Exactly.
models. I'll feel I won the moral victory.
Well, they'll also fall over and explode, and break your own models. That's fine. All right. Because we've rambled now for 20-something minutes, shall we meander to the topic?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel a little anxious.
Because you're not in charge.
That makes
My
two of
notebook
us.
is blank.
Well, that is, yeah. Well, we haven't actually. We should preface this. We haven't seen the questions. We don't know what questions are coming. There are, I'm told, 3 sets of questions: one for me, one for you, and then one for collectively us.
Yeah. So normally I start a podcast with pages of notes, so that I feel equipped and educated and informed. And today I've got Stephen Paul, episode 57. There's my notes.
Cool. Well, we've got notes, which are on a phone that's running out of battery because we're that organised.
Awesome.
So at least one of us organised.
That's fine.
So-
All right. So we're going to hand over the running of the show to Paul and Steve now, and we're
Okay.
going to answer
I
some
believe
questions.
we're handing over to Paul to give an intro.
Yes.
Oh no! So welcome to the Snake Eyes Squad takeover of the Objective Secured podcast with your hosts Paul and Steve.
G'day.
Do you want me to find a snake noise in post for you?
Purple
Or is it-
Cobras.
Absolutely.
Purple
No, I like
Cobras
that.
hiss from Dodgeball.
Oh, the Purple Cobras theme music.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can put that in here at this point.
That's all I want. The intro's done.
And here come the Globo Gym Purple Cobras led by White Goodman. All business.
What gave you this idea?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, well, this came to me one day because after hours of listening to the podcast, I'm like, no one's ever been on the other side. No one's ever really kind of asked you both your experiences. What shaped you? What made you form Objective Secured? What made you start this podcast? What got you into the hobby? How, Emma, you put up with Mike's obsessive?
There's
Mike.
a reason for that. There's a reason that nobody's asked me that.
Oh, look,
They have, but they're not alive
Yeah,
anymore.
that's it.
oh, look, I'm interested too, so that way I can get my girlfriend to do it as well. Because she's slowly coming towards. But it's a slow
Perseverance,
process.
wear them down.
Yeah. Just took 15 years or so.
Yeah, 20? 20, 21?
It took 15 years before. Yeah. We've been going for 5, so yeah.
Yeah, I figured also, be a bit of a break. You do so much behind the scenes, son. You take the limelight a little
Yeah,
bit
but I'm
more.
still going to be doing the editing, aren't I?
Yeah, but
we
now-
didn't have to
Emma can
prepare the
relax.
question.
Yeah, look at Emma. There's
Okay.
no note pages there.
That's
So much
awesome.
free time,
So
especially this
much.
busy season as well. That's no pre stuff organised, and now I can get a bit of glory, get my name known.
I'm
You
just
know,
going to make sure this goes on speaker while I'm editing it tomorrow so that everyone can hear it. Actually, no one's here but me tomorrow. You're at
No.
work and the kids are at school. So.
That's it.
So we've got a group of questions. So we started out, we just had some that Paul and I worked out between us that we wanted to ask. But then also we put it out to the community. And we've come up with a batch of questions from different people. I've got the names here, so we'll try and mention who's...
Well, they may
who's
not like
asking
that.
questions. Oh, some of them are going to be very deliberate. I think the ones from our team are going to be very deliberate.
Okay, that's fair enough.
But we'll try and focus on the ones as much as possible. We've got way too many questions in the end, but we'll try and focus on the ones that are from the community first, and then we'll go to our own ramblings.
Sure.
Go for it.
in saying that, first question is going to be directly from me.
That's what happens when you're in charge. You can do what you want.
That's it. And
Absolutely,
when
you
you've
serve
got
and
the
you serve and
microphone-
undermine.
They keep forgetting that I'm doing the editing, so
Don't take this from me.
you would be amazed at how much ends up on the cutting room floor when I go through it.
Wait, so
Thank
you
God.
ramble for longer?
Yeah.
Oh my
was gonna
God,
say.
so much longer.
I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah.
I actually have stopped keeping the raw files. They were taking up too much space on the hard drive. It was just too much work to keep them.
And that's where you get your 1 gigabyte file from.
That's
Yep.
right.
9 hours of rambling.
9 hours of swearing and... Are you freaking kidding me? I said that wrong again.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
That definitely breaks the rule 3. But okay, we'll go for the first one. Arguably the origin of everything. Mike, what first brought you into the hobby itself?
I'm going to blame... He's actually been on the show with us. A very long-term friend of mine. He's older than me because I was the youngest
So
of my...
he must be ancient.
Yeah,
if he's
since you
older
guys
than
think I'm
mine.
old.
Yeah.
He introduced
Surely
me...
he's a dreadnought by now. Just saying.
Look,
Not
he
far
likes to
off.
pretend he is on the mine site. He likes to be in charge out there and tell all the youngsters that they're doing it wrong. So yeah, I suppose he qualifies. Tim introduced me to Warhammer Fantasy Battle 3rd edition and Rogue Trader back in probably about 88, 89, 1990, somewhere in that space, before either of you were born. Or even...
Before I was in the country.
Yep.
But, yeah.
I'm glad
So-
you realised that because I was going to say something.
Yeah.
Oh, no, no.
Just
It's
kinda-
all right.
yeah.
You covered that earlier. So
Yeah,
we're,
we'll just
We'll just
we're
keep
on to
mentioning that
yeah.
occasionally. Just
So-
to,
Bringing that up.
Tim is... Yeah, I've known him since I was 5 or 4. Or, I've known him 35 years now. And he introduced me to D&D first. And we played some AD&D. And then he said, I've got this, I've got these models are really cool. I'll show you this game. And the first game of 40k I ever saw was him and another friend of mine who I haven't spoken to in a little while, setting up Orcs versus Eldar. And the Eldar players deployed a Warwalker, and that was it. And his opponent, the Orc army, put on like 150 models, all these vehicles and cool stuff. The Eldar player went first, fired 2 virus grenades from his grenade launcher on the Warwalkers, and literally wiped the Orc army out turn 1. And that was my first game of 40k I ever saw. And I went, I don't get it. What am I like?
the Alpha Strike was pretty strong even
Well,
back in the day.
the virus so basically with the virus grenades, they were a 3-inch blast template. If you weren't in fully enclosed armor, power armor, or something similar, on a 3+, you essentially took a mortal wound. And then you moved that small blast marker to any model that had died, and then rolled for everyone else who was under the new marker. And you just kept doing that.
Which, if you got Orcs, is...
Meant that basically you dropped it in the middle of a squad, you'd hit 4 or 5 of them, you'd kill 2 or 3, but then you'd put 3 more blast markers down and roll for everyone again. And then you'd put more blast markers down and roll for everyone again. And if that crossed over into a new unit, you just kept going. And all the orc vehicles were open-topped, so it worked on them as well, because you could kill the crew with it. And it just spiraled. And there's a reason why the virus outbreak and the virus grenades were banned in 2nd edition. Like, they actually published a White Dwarf telling you to tear up your virus outbreak cards from their own box set because it was that busted. But Tim spent all of Rogue Trader, basically, he was the only one of us who had a rulebook. So he would spend weeks planning for the game because it had all the points values in it. And then we'd get half an hour each when we got to the day of the game to figure out an army, to work it out. So Tim was constantly kicking our asses because he was the only one who had the rulebook.
Sounds kind of like when Steve and I used to play. Really?
No.
Surprise, surprise. The person with the rulebook seems to know everything.
Look, Tim produced. There were you used to, the Hellion skyboards. You used to be able to buy them for Imperial armies, and they used to fly 72 inches. And and so you could move them in any direction you liked. So he'd buy 2 Space Marines, buy a vortex grenade dumper. So they literally flew along, dropping a vortex grenade every 10 inches, and then he figure 8'd them across the board, across each other, dropping vortex grenades all over your army. He actually showed up to a game one day with a bag of tennis balls he'd cut in half and sprayed black because they were exactly the right size for a vortex grenade. And we went, Tim, why have you got a bag of half tennis balls that are sprayed black? And he used to grin at us and go, "You'll see."
Oh God!
And he mounted a orbital defense laser and a Land Raider. He fired an orbital defense missile at the table of a 4-player game. I got exposed to hardcore 40k when I didn't know what that actually was.
Right. Mine was less hardcore. Mine was just completely misunderstanding the rules.
Oh no, Tim.
And then generally to my advantage as well.
You got to remember the ages though. You're talking about me being like 10, 11, something like that, and he's 2 years older than I am. So he's at that angsty teenage where he's just wanting to win. And we laugh about it now because I've still got some really fond memories despite some of the lunacy and some of the idiocy of those games. But between that and I remember playing a game of Fantasy Battle with him and another friend of mine, and we set up Castle Grayskull from He-Man as a terrain piece because we didn't have fantasy terrain and using G.I. Joe vehicles and that sort of stuff. So really, really heavy on the sort of imagination and hobby stuff because you just couldn't buy it here in WA back in the 80s and early 90s. There was nowhere that sold it. You had to mail order it, and it was like send a check to Nottingham. Actually, it wasn't. It wasn't.
We grew up before the internet.
It wasn't even Nottingham back in the day. It was actually London. And then we finally got a few outlets, but they were all in Melbourne. And then Tactics rolled around very early 90s. I remember going to the original Tactics, and I actually learned to paint there with Laurie Goodridge, who ended up at GW's head office in Sydney. He taught me to paint as a youngster many, many, many years ago now. So yeah, that's where it all started. It's also where my obsession with Eldar started. Because
seems it, to be honest.
With the vortex grenade, yeah.
The Eldar in 2nd Ed got a war gear upgrade that only went on vehicles, and it was called a vortex grenade detonator. So if anyone carrying a vortex grenade came within 12, it exploded in their hands. So my Farseer and all my important characters used to huddle around a Viper jet bike until about turn 3, when I knew all the characters that could be throwing the grenade had either died or weren't coming near me, and I could kind of figure out where they were. Because all the cards were secret back then, you didn't know who had what. So there was a lot of... it was much more like a role-playing game in the early editions. It was very much... it was a story-driven, very heavily story-driven game system. Like, you didn't play close to the model sizes and army sizes we had now. The original scenario, Battle for the Farm, was 10 Space Marines versus 20 Orcs, I think it was, or 25 Orcs. And you had a DM to run it. So that's actually where the Crimson Fists, the death of the Crimson Fists...
Oh, that's Rin's World. That's right. It comes from there, yeah.
So if you read the book with Rin's World, where the Fortress Monastery gets destroyed, there's actually a sequence in that book that covers the Battle for the Farm, which is the original 40k scenario back in 1988 or whatever it is. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh, it puts me back in memory of times when we... so my family have a beach house down south, and we would go down... a lot of the time, take Paul and his twin brother, and we had a copy of Chapter Approved, 2004 edition, I think it was.
You newbies.
That had the...
I'm going
That's like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, no, we being with again that angsty sort of teenage age, so we were the same sort of super competitive. But it had the vehicle design rules.
Yep, I
back
remember
in the
those.
day, and it was the super heavy.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with those.
Yep.
Well,
So
we
many-
would play
so much
with
fun.
a tape.
I'm sorry, you cannot say back in the day for
2003.
2003.
No.
No.
Back in the day when
that's
I was
more
a
than
wee
half
young
my
lad,
life
you know? Well,
We got-
millennium had just ticked over. The world was still new and
We
scary.
got married in 2004.
We did.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was in like year 6. Girls still scared me at that point.
They're still
They
scared
still-
of him
yeah.
at that point.
Because, we were playing with like cups as
We
tanks
played
and
like
everything
a cup
as well.
as a tank and like a tape measure I'd nicked from my dad's garage. And
So you
But
have
I
to,
quite like that, and I think that I'm a little bit sad that doesn't happen as much anymore. So there isn't as much creativity, and there isn't as
Well-
much people making their own terrain out of cereal boxes.
Well, we've still got
and
my
Pringles
original set of
tubes
terrain.
and- yeah,
that set of there is actually a set of terrain in the Obsec dungeon that is our first proper terrain from 40k
proper is being generous.
from second ed. Like
Yeah.
we, good friend of mine, Matt, built it, and he was going to throw it out when he got out of the hobby, and I went, no, like that's coming,
decision,
that's coming to
keep
me.
it.
Yeah.
And it's seen better days. It actually got broken at one of the
One of the
tournaments we took it
events
to,
recently.
which is a bit sad, so it'll have to be repaired. But it's been repainted over the years. It's been
Repaired.
repaired and repainted and
multiple
repaired and
times.
repainted and repaired and painted.
Yeah.
And it's made out of toilet roll holders and
Not toilet roll holders, but
Toilet
Pringles
tubes?
and
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah, but I think now it's awesome that there is so much available now, but there isn't that creative element that happens. And
Well, the deodorant can tank from Road Trader is the best example. With
Yeah.
Rick Priestley actually publishing an article on what deodorant, like it's a roll-on stick of deodorant. It's one of those flat, thick ones.
Yeah,
And he told you which one to buy, and told you.
Speed stick, I think.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was one of those
Yeah.
thick, wide ones, and he actually put it in a White Dwarf and said, "This is what you go and buy. This is how I built it. This is where you get this spare gun from this kit," and told you how to build this grav tank.
I think that was in the chapter previews.
Yes,
that was
as
in
well.
that
There's a-
one. Yeah,
there's a
that was
piece of
the
art in it,
picture
yeah.
on that
Yeah.
on that vehicle design rules. But that was latterly became the Javelin.
Yeah, the Javelin
Land
Assault Speeder. Yeah.
which is a nice little bit of 40k history.
But yeah, so there's a lot of that stuff. I remember when a lot of that was a big deal. Like we were playing with Space Crusade and Hero Quest models from board games because that's what we had available to us. And I still remember, like, you'd buy all the Space Marines like flight packs because that back in the day you didn't know it was a power pack. It looked like a jump pack. So you'd have these Space Marines with rocket launchers whizzing 70 inches across the floor, like the annex of a caravan, because you were on Christmas holidays with your mates, and that was what that's what we were doing and playing. Like it was pretty amazing.
That still happens because I was playing an intro game with my friend at the last varsity night, and he saw the Space Marine backpacks, and he thought they were all jetpacks. So he kept trying to move his Chaos Marines at like 12 inches. I'm like, no, those are just power packs. Your Raptors can go really fast.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like we used to, because Rogue Trader had a lot of it where you could just build what you wanted. Like it had points values for everything. Like you didn't buy a Space Marine. The Space Marine Codex, for lack of a better description, was it went in the compendium, the compilation, where they actually finally gave you data sheets. It's not a good word for it, but that's kind of what they were. You used to buy a human, and then you'd pay points to upgrade him to transhuman, and then you'd buy him a suit of carapace armor, and then you'd pay points for a respirator, and you'd pay points for an ultravisor, and you'd pay points for a power pack, and you'd pay points for... So you'd have to build what sort of Space Marine you wanted, because Space Marines weren't what they are today. And then you'd only ever make the mistake of not taking... Like, photovisors were like half a point per Space Marine. I don't need photovisors. No one ever takes photovisors. And you'd watch Tim go... Yep, my army list has blind grenades, and you don't have photovisors, and you'd have this wall of blind grenades thrown at you, and all of a sudden your Marines can't shoot, and you'd go, okay, I'm never doing that again. And
Trial by fire.
yep, and the day you stopped taking respirators for your Space Marines was the day you got hit with virus grenades, and
That happens in 30k
Yeah.
nowadays. The community has so there's the melter rule on melter guns. That's
Yep.
2d6 armor penetration if you're within short range, and the armored ceramite, which
Yep,
is
which
ignores
stops
the
it.
melter rule.
Yep.
And so the I know you don't like the word, but the meta fluctuates
yeah,
from
the cycle of
everyone has armored ceramites and no one takes melter, except and then everyone no one takes melter. I'm not going to
I'm
take
gonna go
armored
in,
ceramite.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
which-
the one guy who takes a melter gun is suddenly king of the hill.
Yep.
And then everyone comes back with armored ceramite. And it
Cyclic.
just goes back and
Yep.
forth and back and forth.
But yeah, there's I've seen every edition of the game now, and I still get mixed up occasionally because I go, I vaguely remember it happening that way in one of the games, and we're 8 editions deep now, and I'm getting older, so it's getting harder. But yeah, it's been a long journey to here.
So we'll pick out another one. In that time, can you name a favourite game through all the years? Or anything, a particularly memorable game that sticks out?
I remember my first game of 3rd edition. I remember we were playing a 3-way blank. We literally just got in the box, and it was again with my buddy Tim and another guy who I don't game with anymore. And he'd never played 40k before, and he had the orcs. He had Tim's orcs, and I had my Eldar because I was neck deep in Eldar at the time from Rogue Trader.
At the time,
because so much has changed.
And we didn't understand that back in 3rd edition when it said power weapons ignored armor, we didn't understand that meant armor saves, not vehicles in general. So we had like 10 Howling Banshees charge like a Land Raider and 2 Rhinos and destroy them all in one round of close combat. And then we were getting the jet bike rules wrong. So the jet bikes were plodding along at 8 inches a turn, and then we actually looked them up and went, oh, these can actually move like 30 inches a turn. And then all of a sudden this swarm of jet bikes were like flanking this orc. The guy who's never played 40k before is going, how did you move that far? And I've gone, I just found out I could. But then after a few games of that, Tim and he actually built a terrain piece for this. It was Battle for the Church. And he was very heavily into Blood Angels at the time. And we had an arms race during 3rd edition where it was, if it wasn't painted, you couldn't play it. And we had a points cap, but we didn't have a requirement. So if we'd say we're playing 2,000 points, if you rocked up with 1,750 because that's what you had painted, sucks to be you. So we very quickly ended up in this arms race scenario where I was only fielding 1,500 points because he'd gone and got himself a 200-point unit of Terminators and he'd painted them up in the week before the game. And so I was playing down. So the following week I rocked up with 5 Wraithguard and what was a Dreadnought at the time, but it's now a Wraith Lord. And now he's playing down. And then he, following up the next week, had come with a Dreadnought and a new captain. And then I'd come back, and we just went back and forth and back and forth. And we ended up in a game where we had a 12-inch square church in the middle of the table where I'd infiltrated some Striking Scorpions. They got charged by Death Company. So then I threw Howling Banshees in. So then he threw Assault Marines in. So then I threw the Avatar in. Then he threw in, and we just threw more and more bodies into this grind of this church. And we filled this foot square piece of terrain. And we didn't get to finish the game because Tim's mum went, all right, wrap it up, we're going out. And it was like, oh, okay. So he actually went to rebuild that church so we could play that game again because he's still got that army and I've still got mine. So it might be fun to recreate that game in 8th. But
oh, that's great.
I've got a lot of those sorts of. I couldn't tell you who won half the games I've played, but I remember so many of them really fondly. And killing 4,000 points of Chaos Marines with a Shuriken pistol in Rogue Trader was utterly hilarious, and I'm going to let you ponder that one. And
yeah, you want to explain
that's
that
going
one?
to be interesting.
I mean,
super quick, the orbital defense missile that Tim bought. He bought 10 tactical Marines and then modeled one of them with a laser pointer on his shoulder, like a literal laser pointer. And his turn was turning the laser pointer on and pointing it at the Chaos Army. And we all kind of went, oh, okay, something's not right here. And I was playing Harlequins at the time. So I've retreated as far away as possible from the Chaos Army because the laser pointer's pointed at them. And in Tim's turn, he rolls a dice, and on a 2+, the missile lands. And it was 20 D6 radius. And it basically took up... we were playing on an 8x8 table. And it took up basically a third of the table when it landed. And I said to him, so what does it do? And he's gone, oh, don't worry, it's not going to explode. And we went, well, what have you done? And he's gone, I loaded it with haywire mines. So everything in that space that was mechanical stopped working. So if you're in power armor, you couldn't move, you couldn't shoot, you couldn't do anything. Vehicles stopped working. Eldar were immune to it because it was all Wraithbone.
Of course, yeah.
But
the rule that Mike just made up on the spot.
Yeah.
it was hilarious because the guy who's playing Chaos just ground to a halt and went, well, my turn's done. And then the question came from me, who was immediately following the Chaos player, what happens if I shoot into it? And Tim went, I don't know. And looked it up and went, we just rolled a hit. And I rolled a hit. And it was a Harlequin Solitaire with a Shuriken pistol who's walked up to 12 inches away from the minefield and pulled the trigger. And we rolled the chain reaction. It blew the entire minefield up and wiped out the entire Chaos Army in one cataclysmic explosion.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
I know what people complaining about 8th Ender.
Yeah, no,
That's ridiculous.
That's it. Perspective is a thing.
That and virus grenades and
Yeah.
vortex bombs.
Trust me, and that's why I don't get too worked up about most of it. But yeah, so that's probably, those sorts of games are the ones that I remember because they're just the most random, bizarre scenarios with weird things happen. Like I've had very few games over the years that I've classed as bad, but I remember the highlights from tournaments where I've played something like playing Lawrence from Tabletop Tactics at LVO a couple of years ago. I've got some really fond memories of playing. His name's Bogdan. He played for the Romanian team in 2012 at the ETC. Like, I can tell you the names of the guys I played, and in those particular cases, I can tell you the outcomes because the digital records of them. But most of the games that I remember fondly aren't the ones that I can tell you the scores from. And that's not through old age. I've actually I'm pretty switched on for that sort of stuff in the game. So, yeah, those are the memories that make me want to keep playing, to try and recreate those and get new ones.
Is that more because you enjoy like the social aspect of the game itself rather than the actual game? Like, you know, interacting with people?
I'm a social person, let's face it. So you
do enjoy winning as well.
Yeah. When I went to LVO, that's one of the few times I've gone to a tournament actually actively wanting to compete and try and win. ETC was another. ATC is another. But it's very rare these days I go to a tournament actually trying to win. So most of the time it's about the experience and the fun and
meeting new people, chatting, talking. Yeah.
Sure, there can't be that many more new people in the Perth scene these days.
Do you know what? It's really surprising. So when we first started, I knew every single person in the room, and then when we were at Masters, it was probably only 50% I knew their names. So
we do
I'm
get
starting
influxes.
to struggle now with, like, yeah.
I actually find a lot of people know me, and I don't necessarily know them because they follow us on social media, or they listen to this podcast, or they've come as a spectator to an event, or like I've been in Games Workshop stores before, Warhammer stores, whatever they're called now, and people have come and said, "Oh, how you going?" and chatted to me like I know them, and I don't always know them because we are quite well known in Perth these days.
That sounds a bit odd. But I
would say you're a bit of a personality almost.
Oh, God. But it is hard because there are more and more people who
are
coming.
Keeping track of everyone's really... and we do try and remember people's names and try and get to know people so that, we aren't just treating people as numbers and
definitely not
paychecks. It's about actually building that community, and that comes with knowing them and trying to connect with them.
It's almost like, I think, in a lot of things in 40K and in gaming in general, they're not numbers, they're armies. A lot of the time, you won't know. I won't know Mike. I'll know that Eldar, that red and white Eldar army. I'll know.
Yeah,
I find that a lot.
And that does happen a lot with people who come up and go, "Oh, so, if I'm asking people about sports scores, who did you want to give? Whatever. Oh, the orange Eldar Flyers. I'm gonna need more."
Down under pairings does make that a bit easier these days.
It does now, yeah. But no, I'm definitely who's the person? How tall is he? What colour hair has he got? Help me narrow this down. But you telling me what colour flyers he's got, that's not helping.
At least when they say, "Oh, it was the chick I played."
Yeah, that narrows
it down. Narrows it down quite a lot.
Narrows it down significantly most of the time.
That's more like Glenn or Bree or...
There's probably... we had 9 1 year at doubles, but... on average, it's 2 to 4.
Yeah, that's
so,
it.
I really like that chick's army. Okay, cool. There's only 2 or 3 of them in the room.
Yeah.
Let's work this out.
We can definitely do that.
Saying, that's actually more me, because so many times people said, "Oh, I don't recognize you, but I recognize your Red Imperial Guard army before," because no one else wants to paint their Lemming Russes like fire trucks.
No.
That was just about the stupidest decision we ever made in Hoppy, going red and white on a Guard army and trying to paint it.
I don't make good decisions, Steve. Don't judge me.
Well, that's highlighted by the best friend you've got sat beside you telling you that.
Oh, they look nice. And his Empire conversions, everything, the bits and everything, it looks really nice, but goddamn, I don't envy you painting that.
Oh, I still can't paint white. It's been like 5 years, still can't do it properly.
Okay, so we'll shoot over to you, Emma. So this is coming from Vince. During your time running OBSEC, what things have met or confounded your expectations in the gaming community?
I'm not 100% sure I went into it with any expectations around what the gaming community was or is. So so things that have met my expectations. When we first started, we sat outside under the patio with a group of guys at the time, and Mike was saying, "Well, we can't do this because we don't have the resources to be able to do it." And I said, there are people out there. ask them. People will loan us stuff, and people have done that right from the very start, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean, Outpost 6030 basically helped us kick off along with bits
But
from Armadale
people,
War Games.
just
And then,
people.
we reached out, and that first Masters event, we must have had half a dozen different people volunteer to drop stuff off or let us come and pick it up or help us paint terrain.
But I think that's around the community as well, that people are, they are happy. They want this to happen, and they are prepared to actually give whatever they can to make it work. So I think the generosity of people that was sort of kind of, I had this understanding that people would do what needed to be done in order to make it happen, and that's definitely worked. And even though I don't like asking for help, when you so for the last Masters, Michael obviously went and injured himself a week before the event. I was irrationally angry about it because of the extra work that it was going to mean for me.
Yeah.
And even though I knew that, apart from reversing the trailer, which I still can't do,
you got it on the grass. It's roughly where it needs to be.
It only took 12 goes, but I got it on the grass.
Oh, look, I can't reverse a trailer either, so I feel you.
Yeah. So I was like, that is the only thing I can't do. I can get there, I can lift it, I can lug it, I can do it all. I just can't reverse the trailer. And so you put the call out and said, well, who can come and help us? And so, Steve, you were there, right? We had heaps of people who were there to help us. Not a single person who was there to help us could reverse a trailer. So that was the one thing that I needed help with. But people are really generous with their time and with their skills and with their stuff. So
I think a lot of it. I mean, we've certainly tried to over the years set a standard and try and create good, fun events the community wants.
Yeah.
And I think that's, someone said it's reaping what you sow for what we've been doing, because we've been giving good events to the community and they want us to keep doing it. So
we've been giving good events to the community.
And when I busted my knee, that meant that people were happy to come and give us an extra half hour at the start of the day or at the end of the second day to help us get it all up and running.
Yeah, but without you, we didn't need it.
I'm just going to sleep in. You can do it. I'll tell you what, I'll drive the car down, I'll unhitch the trailer where it needs to be, and then I'll go home for like a 40-minute nap.
Or we could just gag you, and then we'll still get it done with.
No, just have someone as a dedicated mic control person.
As long as
chat to him for an hour.
No, just
keep him out of the way.
let me take a sleeping bag and a pillow. I'll just curl up on the stage. I'll be fine. Half hour nap. I'll be great.
But as far as what didn't meet the expectation, I heard a lot about hardcore gamers and hardcore tournament players. And over the last 5 years, I've met 3, which is not bad. We've had about 5,000 people come through Southern Hemisphere Open events, but with our just 40K events, we've got about 500.
You look, I mean, the highest year we had a couple of years ago, we had about 450 unique player names come through. Down Under Pairings at the moment has it around 300 for the 2019 season, just over 300.
Over the last 500.
Oh, look, over the last 5 years,
we
it's
would have
probably
seen
more
at
like
least.
600 or 700 individual players.
And I can put my finger on 3 of them to say, yep, those people are what I heard about before we started this. That's it. Well, I think that's probably not bad.
In 30 years of gaming, I can count on one hand how many times I've played that guy. Like, it doesn't happen. And I'm not just talking about Perth, I'm talking about around the world. I've played at some of the biggest events in the world, and I've never met more than 5 in all those years that I kind of went, I don't really want to play you anymore. So
Should point out, because I was also really confused, that you mean mimetic, that guy.
Yeah.
In inverted commas, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
We're not all
not
sitting
that
here.
I thought you were
one
saying
guy.
you avoided one person.
And it's a bit of a jerk.
Yeah.
But
No, the colloquial that guy.
Yeah.
I can think of maybe 4 or 5 in all the years that I've kind of gone, I won't lose any sleep never playing you again. So I think that's pretty good odds.
Yeah.
And the only other thing would be what a gamer looks like. There's kind of there's sort of this.
They wear black. We can
we can definitely say that. Yeah, most of them
Can confirm, yes.
a few shades of really dark grey. But there's kind of this idea that gamers are geeks, neckbeards, all of this kind of idea, don't shower, still live with their parents, socially awkward.
I'll have you know, I recently just moved out of home. Thank you
Did
very
you
much.
shower as well?
I did, yes.
Oh, my
Twice a
goodness.
day almost, sometimes.
No, he's got a girlfriend that makes him shower, but getting out of his parents' house, that was an
That
achievement.
was it.
Only took
27. I'm
Only
not
took
put out.
27 years.
Is this an intervention all of a sudden? Did I miss a memo?
But there is no stereotypical gamer. We walk into an event and there's such an eclectic mix of people in that room. You can't pigeonhole what a gamer looks like.
No, I mean we've got all professions, all walks of life, all
Ages.
Yeah.
Not so much the genders. But.
No, I mean we still get a little bit of variety in that regard, but
It's an odd way to put it, but
well, you never know
You mean
these
there's
days.
a couple of women who rock up?
Yeah, okay, let's go with that.
Yeah.
That makes it easier.
Yeah.
No, then that's a good point. It talks about our team as well, that we've got. So between the six of us, I think Bree works in a factory. I'm an engineer in oil and gas. Paul's an environmental scientist. Who else is there? Alex is a geriatric OT. James is a teacher, and Matt's a gym coach. Like, there's none of us have anything in common
No.
apart from gaming.
No one's in IT. Like,
No.
Yeah, no.
Surprisingly not known.
Like that's obviously one of the classic, I suppose, stereotypes is that, the IT nerd.
Yeah.
Actually, now I think about it, I actually don't know too many of them who are, ironically, IT nerds who play. I know a couple, but not too many.
But even the ones who are the IT nerds aren't what you would
No,
get
they're
the
not.
mental picture of an IT nerd.
No, definitely not.
So, yeah.
I think the one that gets me is age. Like, whenever I tell my friends I play this, they all assume it's all kids and teenagers playing it. But really, when you go out to a tournament or go even to a games workshop on a Friday night, it's all kind of like 20s, mid-20s higher.
Well, so we have players from our youngest player that's attended an
9.
event has been 9 for the young bloods, but 12 for a regular event.
Yep.
And the oldest would be,
In his 60s, I would have said.
yeah, maybe older.
When we actually did some vague analytics, I mean, there's only so much you can do because obviously you're not going to ask entrants to a tournament what their age is. But you can kind of walk the room and have a guess where, like you say, most people go, oh, it's a game for kids. And you go, no, this is not a game for kids. This is a game for the people who are through that part of their life where they're,
Actually have money.
Yeah.
I was about to say this is getting
Disposable
with
income.
disposable
Their parents are
income.
fucking
Yeah.
But that's like we've seen that life cycle now as organisers, and we saw it in our own life, and we've seen it with friends' lives where you game until you're 16, 17, you discover the
And you
opposite
find-
sex,
Yeah.
and then you skip it for a few years, and then you pick it back up in your early 20s again because now you're working and you've got disposable income and you're not going out pubbing and clubbing every night. And then you get
Have
attached to
babies.
someone and you drop out of it again for a little while and you get back into it, and then you have babies and you drop back out and you get back in. And by the time you're in your late 20s, you're either going to be in or you're out because you'll either given it up long enough that you're going, yeah, I'm cool, like I'm doing something else, I've lost interest or whatever. Or you go, I'm back in this now, I've got the money to do it, I can do what I want. So,
But even that, we see people who, particularly when 8th Ed came, when 8th Ed dropped, saw a lot of people getting back into it that had been out of it since 3rd Ed.
yeah, that's true. 8th, they did bring a lot of players back, particularly the ones who dropped out at the end of 5th who didn't enjoy 6th and 7th editions. So we certainly saw players that didn't play our events at the tail end of 7th who I used to play against in 4th and 5th editions come back and play in 8th. So that's been really positive for the community as well because you've got all these grizzled war veterans coming back and
Somewhat jaded. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhat forgetting all the rules and just replacing
Just-
others.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I caught myself trying to roll a difficult terrain test the other week, and I'm like, they don't exist anymore. My models don't die for going into cover anymore. So, Emma, another one for you. Your son is starting out in the hobby. Would you,
it's cheaper than Lego, people. It's cheaper than Lego.
would you encourage other parents to get their kids involved? Why or why not? And at what age?
Okay, so actually I would, believe it or not. And one of the reasons, as Mike just said, is because it is actually cheaper than Lego.
Yeah, I actually discovered that and showed my wife, see, it's fine. I got a cheap hobby.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
compared to most luxury hobbies, it's actually cheap.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure
like
it's
racing
cheap.
or that sort
I
of
said
thing.
luxury hobby.
Yeah, okay.
Comparatively cheap.
Comparatively, and I'm going to say affordable rather than cheap.
Okay, that's
valid.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So our son is an absolute Lego fiend, and he has been building adult, the 16 plus Lego. He's been doing that since he was 4. So he has Lego kits that $300 Lego kit, and it will take him if we're
Couple of
lucky,
hours.
2 hours
Yeah.
to build, and then that's it. And that $300 Lego kit sits on a shelf in his room that just gathers dust.
He did
so-
dust them when he cleaned his room this week.
He did, but I think it's the first time he's dusted them in about 5 years. So, there's a lot of money sitting on shelves in there that doesn't get used, whereas at least I think, well, $300 worth of army that you have to build and then paint and then you get to play with regularly, that feels like value for money. But from a parenting perspective and someone who homeschooled my son for 3 years, there is so much that's in the hobby as well. So there's not only all of the English component, there's all the maths component obviously as well. There's all of the literacy that goes with it, but also I think some of the social skills that come with coming to events as well. For some of our younger players who perhaps don't have great male role models, I think it's really good to have some positive male role models in the room that they get to interact with. And so you've got all the learning components as well as the social components. There are men in the room who model how to behave respectfully towards me, which means our younger players get to see how to treat women with respect. And then there are males who will pull up people who aren't being respectful. And I think that's really positive for young boys and teens, and also for some older guys to see as well. So there's all of this learning that goes into it. So as much as I joke and go, there is no way in hell I want my kids doing this because, oh my God, there's no room for any more models in our house. It's taken over my entire life.
I like that Lachlan picked an army that I don't play.
Yeah, surely there's going to be a lot of
that's
hand-me-downs you can
That's
do.
got to be like lottery odds for him to pick an army that you don't play.
Honestly, it's such a...
I actually don't play Space Marines.
Or Death Guard,
I
apparently.
seem to believe you own some Space
Oh,
Marines.
yeah, he owns
I own
everything.
Dark Angels from 3rd edition. They were done for a tournament, and then I've got a Raven Guard army in the works now because I've always liked the Raven Guard. And
You could also count your Grey Knights army as a Space Marine army.
yeah, I suppose technically.
On
They
your
have the Adeptus Astartes keyword. So.
Oh, look, only the loosest. They're only Space Marines in the loosest sense of the word.
No, yeah, but he when we always said we didn't want to. I didn't want him to
play this just because
I did. I
Yeah.
didn't want him playing, doing this hobby because I told him he should. So
He
he's
had to pick it up himself.
he's had models over the years that he's dabbled and painted and mucked about with. Like I've got a converted Dark Eldar model that's painted up like Spider-Man from when he was about 8 or 9. But he came and said, "Hey, I want to learn." And then we took him for his first painting session in store because I never got that as a kid. I never got to go through what they have now. And even though I could have taught him, I wanted him to learn.
Not learn bad habits.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've got plenty of them for the hobby.
What's really interesting though is that so I have a brother and he and I could not be more different. And he is so I am very geeky and very nerdy and have lots of letters after my name, and he is an athlete. We are not in any way, like how we're related, I don't know. His son is the same age as our youngest daughter, and so he's just turned 7, and his grandma from his mum's side,
So no connection to us whatsoever.
to us at all, happened to be in Morley and took them past the Warhammer shop there and took them in, and he got to paint his first Space Marine when he was in there, and he is, oh my goodness, so hooked. And my brother
That's how they get you.
oh my goodness, so not happy. Max, who's the 7-year-old, my nephew, he came to, was that mixed doubles that he came to? Must have been mixed doubles. And
No, he was there for Masters.
was it Masters?
Yeah,
I
he
thought
was
it
there for
doubles.
Masters. I'm not sure now. Now you say that.
No, it wasn't. It was mixed doubles.
Anyway,
So he it was mixed doubles. So he came to that, and he was so excited to tell me all about these models that he'd painted and how he'd played this game, and he'd beat, I think it was Shane that he'd played in
Probably.
store. And so, then he got to go around and he got to see all the different armies, and he got to see all of these men who were playing with these armies, and he was in absolute seventh heaven. And yeah, as a 6-year-old, it was really cool.
just for your own curiosity, did you know that Games Workshop used to actually, and they've come back into the school curriculums and stuff, and they've started doing that sponsorship thing with different schools and whatnot. You go back far enough, and again, showing my age, but there was a period in time in the UK where it was actually an elective in school, was Warhammer.
Suddenly, I wish I was older.
Yeah, I wish I'd taken that. I sort of failed it, but I would like to take it.
It was a September a semester elective, and the first term was all to do with the building and painting and the stories, and so it was all English and art related. And the second term was all probability and measuring and mathematics based as they did the games. And they did that as an elective. So can you imagine your parents getting your book list for 1992
Codex
or 94 or whatever it is, and
Codex Dark Angels, paintbrush that cost $37.
no, you got to go back far enough where they're not publicly listed, so you're paying £1.99 for a set of 5 paintbrushes, and I'm talking the dark old days,
The good days, the better days.
in some ways, yes, and in other days you get sculpts like
Like Ragnar.
yeah, well he's actually not terrible, but yeah, some of the older sculpts aren't. Which you probably have never seen. I guarantee I have models in this house that are older than both of you.
Might be some in the cutlery drawer.
Yeah, our youngest does like leaving her models that she paints around the house just in random spots. So we find
It's quite often they're quite
the
often
cutlery
in the cutlery drawer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are Stormcast Eternals?
I was going to say, if they're Dark Elder, there's enough points, you could definitely use them as a fork.
Yeah.
Actually, the Christmas miniatures that we posted.
Not when they're made with lead. Like we do have to avoid that.
Yeah, I think we banned that, outlawed that a while ago.
I've actually, during all of our stuff getting ready for Christmas with the models that are just sat up on top of the computer there that the kids and Emma painted that I'm going to drill holes in and make Christmas ornaments out of. They were Spare Space Marines and Dark Eldar and Saurus Warriors and all sorts of stuff. I now have a bag of models sat down, just down here beside me. There's about 20 different models, all undercoated and prepped and ready, so that when her, in particular, our youngest, comes and says, I want to paint with you, cool, here we go. Take your pick.
Yeah, I actually have same future planning. I don't have kids yet, but I've got a box of my old Warhammer that's stashed up away for when the kids inevitably want to get to that stage.
Yeah.
And
I've got photos of
go.
them all painting when they've been young, wanting to sit there paint with Dad. I've got Ava, our youngest, sat on my lap learning how to airbrush at like age 3.
Yeah, most of that was on her arm though.
It was, but I was teaching
That's
her
no different to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really good for kids. Once you can get past the psychology of the cost attached to it, and I think the danger with parents is you listen to what some of the sales staff say, and you go and you spend $1,000, and then you walk away, and the kid's not interested. 3 weeks later, that's the risk.
Yeah, but you
if you
also
go
have to use some common sense as well. You do not need a $50 tape measure.
No, you don't.
Like when we were first together, I don't even know if you guys are old enough to remember WA Salvage, but
That look says no.
yeah, no, it does.
I remember the ads. Never
Yeah,
actually
I
set foot in
the
one
ads
because I was
back
about
then.
6 and didn't really need any home improvement stuff.
Emma worked in the paint section.
I did. I rocked that paint section.
You did.
Anyway, but I remember it would have been 1999, and
Third ed 40K.
and so we were in
Year
Rain
3.
Square. Oh my God. It's banned from all of our events. So
No, we'll just give him
did you ever go to Rain Square?
We'll just give him a 1 point penalty for every year
Every time
difference.
he mentions
No, just year difference.
No, every time he mentions it, because there'll be more. Did you ever go to the Rain Square store?
No,
I don't want to answer that.
It started in upstairs at Carillion when I was
No.
the earliest I got it.
No, so
Oh my God.
So Rain Square,
Stank.
where Bank West
It
is
stank.
at the moment
it was
in the
so
city,
bad.
there used to be a horseshoe bridge that led you over from the train station over to Rain
It
Square.
was a bridal.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing
Literally,
was bridal.
there was a bridal store,
It was all bridal.
Games Workshop.
Except for Games
bridal.
Workshop.
It was hilarious.
All
yeah.
overly expensive things you use once.
Yeah. Well, so we were
The
in.
bridal lady did not like us.
No, because it stank.
No, not only that, because we were loud
Yeah,
and
there was that as
noisy,
well.
and there was death metal playing on the speakers, and she's there trying to cultivate this, sipping champagne and all this sort of stuff while trying on your wedding dresses, and there's the group of
Bunch of hairy
Teenage
nerds.
boys,
15
yeah.
to 18-year-old kids going, "Whoa!" at the top of their lungs at like 8:30 on a Saturday morning for store open and this sort of stuff.
My point was, way back when in 1999 in Rain Square store, I remember being in there before Christmas and a mum came in and her son had just got into Warhammer and she wanted to buy something and didn't know what to buy, and she was talking to one of the staff members who was in there who was showing her different things, and then I think he went off to talk to somebody else, and I went over there and went, it's just a tape measure, right? You just need to make sure it's got inches on it and you're all good. Like, this is literally $2 from WA Salvage, and an inch doesn't change no matter what you're using to measure it with.
Unless you buy one of the most recent Chinese tape measures that are all wrong.
That is true, and it was WA Salvage. But, but a tape measure, you don't need that kind of stuff.
No.
If you're going to spend the money, at least spend it on something that's useful.
Well, Superglue is another great one.
Yeah, but I do think sometimes the 10 tubes for $1.99 is not necessarily the
you
best
need to go.
option.
You need to go higher than that, but you don't need
you
to go
don't
and spend
need.
$15 on a tube of tape Superglue.
Yeah. But, there's ways that you can be economical with it. So you don't have to spend $500 on terrain for your army. You can actually make stuff yourself. Or, now there's 3D printed options, and which obviously wasn't around.
No.
I think the first terrain we used was a bunch of popsicle sticks glued together and spray painted black.
Yeah, so we made a barrier out of it. I remember that thing. I've still got that.
Tablecloth.
Well, we went to a wedding.
Books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Stacked
remember-
up, tablecloth over the top.
We went
There's
to a
a-
wedding
yep.
where they'd made terrain as their centerpieces for their wedding tables, but it was all made from the inside of toilet paper rolls.
That is true as well.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, so just another one for you, man. As the wife of the gamer, is the perspective we wanted to see. Has Mike's hobby ever put a strain on your relationship?
Yes.
Do you think it has?
Show.
Oh, yeah, but that's... There was a moment where I did hope he had a nasty accident, so we had to cancel the first show.
He did. It was just 6 months later.
Yeah. Oh, God, he's so accident prone, he said. But I don't think so. I mean, I do see lots of... I think when we got together, I knew that you played this game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just part of who he is. And so in the same way that I've been a dancer for the whole time that he's known me, and that's part of who I am, I wasn't intending to give that up because we were getting married or having children. I didn't expect him to give it up either. And I see that's probably one of the things I do see, that women, they do tend to go, well, yes, I know he plays this game, but when we get married...
He won't.
He won't. I'll expect for him to stop that. But for me, I guess the only issue is it would be awesome if you could get out and play more often. It's just trying to balance all of the different commitments that we've got, because we have 3 children, and so we have to have them here, there and everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Look, I
it makes
mean,
it
I
difficult.
know there's been occasions in the past where I've decided to paint a new army 2 weeks before a tournament,
Oh, yeah, then I want to kill him.
and every
Because-
spare moment of my world is sat with a paintbrush or an airbrush in hand or both,
Yeah.
all hours of the day and night, and I've spent the last couple of years trying to curb that and
Part
be a
of
bit
that
more
is because
prepared.
I'm a planner and he's not.
No.
So you think, you know what, you've known that this event has been coming up for
impulse,
12 months.
impulse driven here.
And you decided that 2 weeks before you would build and paint an entire new army.
Yeah, because that's when the new codex drops. You got to have the new
Or
hotness.
it's not. Or you
No,
just
it's
happen
just-
to walk past and see something shiny in a shop window. So
Yeah, so I have been trying to, and that's actually been the last 2 years of my, when people go, why are you taking all this random stuff to tournaments? It's because I go, I don't want to paint anything. I don't want to have Emma upset at me for painting for 2 weeks solid. What armies do I have that I can just pull out of the box? And
Everything.
yeah, everything.
I do get that question occasionally. So what army do you play? And I go, well, can we flip that question and go, what armies don't I play? Because it's a shorter list. So
It's worth pointing out that Matt on our team, I think we worked out he doesn't play Sisters of Battle yet.
Yet.
And he doesn't...
Don't think he has any Dark Elder or Drakari.
Oh yeah, and he doesn't play elves of any Eldar of any kind. And he doesn't yet play Sisters of Battle. That's it.
if I
That's
actually
it.
if I
Yeah.
actually count every model I've ever bought and played at least one game with before, either on selling or whatever, I have played every army.
That's a fair achievement. Do you get like a Scouts badge?
I think so.
I expect too much money.
I get a look from my wife that says you don't need to buy that again, and then I don't buy that again, and we move on.
If you really want it, then we can talk about it.
To-
But if it's just an impulse buy because you saw it
I've
and
gotten
it's
better.
shiny,
I've gotten better at that.
then
Like I didn't buy the Sisters box set.
It was so close.
It was very close.
So I had said that I would buy him the Sisters box set, and he was like, "No, I don't need it. I've already got the Army. I don't really want it. I just want it because it's limited and all of this kind of stuff." So he didn't want it, and then somebody said, "I've got one. Did you want it?" And all of a sudden, because it was sold out, all of a sudden he wanted it. Nah. Sorry.
I
Remember
didn't.
that conversation we had where you said you didn't really need it?
And then after the last, was it the podcast or the live? I forget.
I think it was after the live.
I made a comment going, if anyone just wants to sell the codex and the cards, hit me up. Someone actually saw us and did, and offered to sell me just the codex and the cards from the box. So I actually got the bit I wanted. So, so I might actually have to take that. I don't even know if there's going to be an event before the actual standard codex release, because I was really hoping to take it and mess with the TO, because I'm dreading First Blood because of that codex.
But you at least have it now,
Yeah, well, that's true.
which makes it easier.
Imagine First Blood if you didn't have that codex.
Well,
Well, that's what we were thinking.
like,
yeah.
how do you
Yeah, what would you do? Would you be like, no, I don't have it, so you can't play it?
or what happens if the two of you rock up with Sisters of Battle, but one of you has the codex and one of you doesn't?
Well, isn't it in your players pack that you must have a physical copy of the rules?
Yeah, there is a requirement, and this is the other part of it is, when we talked about this on the podcast, was digital copies. There is no digital copy of the Sisters book right now. You can't buy one. So if you've got a digital copy, I know it's a dodgy copy.
I
Yeah.
scanned it for my own personal use.
Yeah,
I don't like books. I like
All
everything in digital
900
form.
pages of it.
yeah, no.
Exceedingly low quality.
But that that's a whole other topic which we won't get into. We'll just move on to the next question, because that could be a whole nother. That might even be another episode.
But in general, no, I don't think so.
No.
You really have a great attitude. Can you talk to my wife for a while?
Yeah, maybe my girlfriend as well, please. She's just started accepting buying me Warhammer for presents, but that's about the limit of it.
Look, we've been together for almost 21 years. You've got to work gradually into this. So.
Look, the relationship I have with Emma's mum is one that I've cultivated. I've spent years working on, to the point now where she goes, just go and buy something from Forge World and I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
That was Christmas this year.
That's brilliant.
That's been every year since we got
It
together.
has been. I got the $400 Eldar box set in 4th edition. She part paid for the Revenant Titan way back in 2005, 2006.
It's normally what big thing do you want?
And
we'll-
she'll contribute, or
Yeah.
like this year I got a Wraith Seer because I haven't got a Wraith Seer for my Elder army, so I ordered one from Forge World. So,
I could really use a Wraith Seer.
even
It's all right. He'll probably be selling one in
No.
6
I
months'
could really
time.
use a mother-in-law like that.
this is just these days with my Eldar, it's more filling in gaps in the collection
Yeah.
that I don't have than like the Night Spinners. I didn't have Night Spinners. I did. I had them on sprue in the dungeon, and I just finally got around to building them. That sort of thing. So yeah, I'm actually fortunate that I get more support for the hobby from Emma's family than directly from my family, who I suppose are just over it. So yeah, this year it was, what do you want? Okay, this is what you want. Cool, go and buy it and just tell me how much it is and I'll sort you out. Okay, awesome. So
Green with envy here.
Yeah, this is one for OBSEC as a whole. You have a huge influence over the local gaming community. How does that influence make you feel and act?
I think it does make. So I will generally try and rein Mike back in.
yep.
So, and constantly trying to remind him that we are the professional face of OBSEC. So, if he wants to rant, then he has to rant to me, and then he has to pretend to be a grown-up.
Emphasis on pretend.
Pretend, yeah, definitely pretend. Now, most of the time that's all good, but he's not very good at reminding me that I need to rein it back in.
No, because she's scary when she's angry. So
So occasionally, when I reach my absolute breaking point and I can't pretend to be professional, he doesn't remind me that I need to be professional. So, but most of the time we do try and work to kind of go, we do have to make sure that we're not gossiping and that kind of thing.
it's a really weird one. Like I said earlier, like you can go into a store and people will know us, which is...
Or, today I was at my son's, there was a presentation where they've been raising some money for service dogs for people with PTSD, and was chatting to so somebody runs a local RSL, and I'm trying to start something for first responders and vets. And so I was talking to her, and then all of a sudden there was one of the guys who was in the room who happened to be a member of PAGS, and he's like, "Oh no, I know you guys."
I've had it happen in random spots as well.
I thought that was quite random, actually.
Well, we were at the Highland
You're talking
Games
about dogs and yeah.
here in Armidale last year,
Yeah.
and I was with Lachlan, and I had my Sons of Horus hat on, and I was just walking with him, going through all the medieval arms and armor and all that sort of stuff, and I had someone stop me in costume and go, "Are you Mike?" And I've got my then 11-year-old
The other person
son.
was in costume, not Mike. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you ever see Mike in costume, the apocalypse was about to happen.
Yeah, probably. Except unless it's a Space Marine suit of armor.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I
That
remember
was
seeing
amazing.
that. Still very jealous.
But I've stopped and gone, I've got my 11-year-old son with me at the time, and you know my name and I have no idea who you are. So I've paused and gone, yeah. He's gone, I listen to the podcast and I do this and I do that. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. No worries. This is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
It's a bit strange, but okay, cool. And I've had that a few times. Like at LVO, I had American people come up and start talking to me that I've never met before, who knew my voice, or like through World's End Radio back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's those moments are a bit spinny because you're totally disarmed for it. You have no, like, it's not like you're a celebrity in Hollywood. We do what we do.
It just does.
Just a little old personality.
I don't even think we qualify as a personality, to be honest.
Yeah, but
Nerdinality in Perth, maybe.
You have 27 Patreon subscribers.
This
That's
is
pretty
true.
big.
yeah.
Sure, maybe double that in Objective Secured podcast listeners.
Yeah.
I
We
reckon
should
we've
do all right
probably
in the
got
podcast.
50 listeners. Yeah.
I actually keep track of the metrics and stuff, and we've had to give those to a couple of potential sponsors. So we actually do okay for the podcast listens. Not as big as I'd like, but not as low as you might think.
Yeah.
Perth anality.
You just had to get that in there a third time.
Yeah.
So, say this came from James and our team actually. Unlimited funding. Say you had a multi-millionaire benefactor. What would you be doing with if you could do an event, a show, or a big? If you had any freedom, total freedom to do what you wanted, what would you do as an event?
Well, okay. So not that I've thought about it.
No.
But
Would you not do it and hire someone else
Take
to
the
do
money.
it for you?
okay, there is definitely that. We would definitely have staff who would be doing a whole heap of the promotion and that kind of stuff. But
And the work on the day.
and yes, a lot of people doing the work on the day. So no, there is a venue that I would really love to buy, but it's $11 million. But what I would really like to do is basically turn that into so that we have show, but have the ability for people to be able to stay there and to have
Mini
some of
Mini
that.
Wargaming in Canada did something similar recently where they opened a Warhammer hotel where basically they've got a space for about 30 players to play, and then they've got rooms that you can go and stay at the venue. I think Emma's talking about it on a bigger scale,
Yeah.
where you can host, 200 players or that sort of thing.
Yep.
Floor space. I mean, Perth real estate is just so expensive. If we could
Yeah.
have a permanent venue somewhere, that is the dream, because then our lives get so much easier in terms of storage, in terms of what's in the house, in terms of...
Well, it wouldn't, because it is actually quite convenient having everything here.
Well,
if we
that is
want
true.
Anything, you just go, oh yeah, no, I've got one of those.
Not,
It'll
I'm
be
nicking
out
down
in
to the
dungeon,
building.
Not
Yeah.
it's half an hour's drive to wherever we're going. But I think show is
Well,
probably
then it'd just delineate back into my hobby and OBSEC. At the moment, there's a very grey area that they both kind of straddle at the same time.
yeah.
Not that I'd lend my armies out for players, but
No, but that is something that I would like to do.
we
I
did
would
talk
like
about that.
to have
studio armies, for lack of a better description.
yeah, and to be able to do things like intro sessions where we're able to teach people to play and
Not just
gaming
starter
and-
box stuff, like actual, you want to learn how to play Grey Knights. Cool.
Okay.
Here's...
Proper fully formed armies. You
Yeah.
troops
Yeah,
and
yeah.
flies, you heavy support.
Not necessarily every option, but being able to
But
go...
be able to go, here's an army.
Yeah.
Yeah, one that I would actually play and can actually show. And it sounds so arrogant to say that, but that I could show you how I would play it, essentially.
Yeah, so it's a functioning army, something that you'd take as an event.
Yeah.
Sort of
Yeah,
army,
and I guess with things that you can mix and match so that you can actually try different things and
Yeah.
be able to, yeah.
So this is one from Ryan. What do you love and hate about the Perth competitive gaming scene?
Go on.
Me?
Yeah. Or is this aimed at me?
No,
This is OBSEC as a whole. I mean, it'd be interesting to see both perspectives.
The biggest issue we have in the format in terms of competitive gaming is walking the line between hobby police and making the game as playable as possible. And what I mean by that is it would be far easier if you were playing Ultramarines and they're painted Ultramarines and they're all WYSIWYG and they're all correct and they're on the right base sizes and all the rest of it, except you've rocked up with green Space Marines and you're now saying that they're blue space, like they're using the rules for the blue Space Marines. If the competitive community would step up, and not everyone does it, but if you paint your army one colour, stick to that army.
That means I'm going to have to paint mine Oyand and no.
But that's exactly the hurdle we face as organisers, is where do you draw the line in terms of policing other people's enjoyment and hobby? And we've always tried to be as reasonable as possible with that for any of the events we've run. There's a lot of conversation that sits in the background before we release players packs, and if you're part of the patrons group, like I know Steve has, he's seen some of the stuff that goes on where by the time the patrons see it, we've already had
hours of discussion.
A swathe of conversation where I go, I'm thinking about doing this. Okay,
cool, how can I break it?
What
well,
does that...
there is that, yeah. I think that for me to sum up what you're saying, it's that we have to create that social contract for an entire room full of players.
But it also has to be one that everyone's happy with.
Well, that's exactly it. And you're never going to make everyone happy. And it's the person who is the loudest.
Sometimes gets the most attention.
Yeah, but it's not like they're often the minority as well. And that then becomes really difficult because you think, well, this is what I'm hearing. But that's one person out of...
Yeah, when you've got 80
68.
people in a room and 78 of them say, no, this is awesome, I'm really happy, and the other two go, oh, I would have liked to have seen you do this and this.
It's human nature that you hear the negatives.
Yeah.
It's like you don't complain when you're happy. You're like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to
Yeah,
keep on doing
that's
what I'm
it.
doing.
Yeah.
The other one that I get frustrated with occasionally is around terrain. That's probably the biggest complaint I have in my head because I see terrain from all around the world. I hear about it from organisers. We spend a lot of our life talking about it and what we're going to do with it and how we're going to store it and where it's going to go and how much do we need. And
you hate terrain.
I so hate terrain. That was almost an M rating.
Yeah.
We've done pretty well, quite long.
Yeah.
Let's keep this PG.
I understand the need for terrain and I love playing on painted terrain. I hate building it. I hate storing it. I hate everything to do with it other than actually playing on it. But then I know how much effort has gone into our terrain, not just by... I can't say I've done the majority of it, not even with a straight face, not even close to with a straight face.
No, you really can't.
I've built a lot of it. I hate painting it. Emma's done so much of that. Richard's done a bunch of it as well. He's repairing a table at the moment for us because he looked at it at Varsity and went, no, that needs repairing. I'm taking that home. You guys do enough. So when I know how much effort goes into it and then someone says you don't have enough terrain on that board, that can be really disheartening because you go, we spend time, like if you'd seen us 2 days before Masters, the lounge room that sort of adjacent to where we're sat was 6 feet tall in tubs of terrain, and we were pulling every tub.
Which is awesome because I don't know if you haven't met me, I'm not 6 feet tall.
No.
So me trying to get those tubs of terrain up and down to pull them out
but that's it. I'm on crutches at that moment.
Yeah, and it was
And
totally useless to
we
me.
were opening boxes with a 2x4 piece of board out, filling that 2x4 piece of board to make sure there was enough terrain, adding line of sight blocking stuff to it. We spend 2 or 3 days in the lead up to a tournament doing that to make sure that we've got enough terrain. And then if we need to, we can reach out and borrow and all the rest of it. And then you still get complaints, oh, there's not enough terrain on that board. And you go...
Yeah, on a side note, how does OBSEC's terrain kind of rate compared to other places? Because, I mean, I know you've played in tournaments around the world. So how does it compare to that?
I actually think I'm actually going to buy a couple of the sets of terrain from a couple of the major events around the world to kind of highlight... first of all, so that I can see how we stack up.
Yeah.
But based on the measurements I've seen and the specificity of the terrain, I think Perth players would be quite surprised about what some of the major events around the world actually use in terms of quantity in particular. There's been a big shift in the community lately to put the big Nova Ls, which are basically 9 inches long, 9 inches wide, and 9 inches high, solid, and put at least 2 of those on every board, roughly 8 to 12 inches apart in the center of the table. And then people are very surprised when the same lists keep winning those events. And I feel like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point where the players who are good enough to understand the game to that level have then gone, cool, I can build an army that does X, Y, and Z, utilizing those specific pieces of terrain, which leads to a negative experience for other players because they can't do what that does. So they're forced to either adopt the same army or settle for second best. And I think I prefer the variety on our tables simply because it forces and challenges you to make choices rather than simply going, I know there's going to be this, I know there's going to be that, I know how my army deploys on the table because it's the same terrain every time, and it leads to games that are less dynamic, in my opinion.
So our terrain...
Was that polite enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Did very well.
Yep.
It's not normally that polite when there's nothing recording.
Our terrain is more varied than a lot of terrain from some of the major events around the world. And it is... I guess there is the variety between the tables. So depending on... whereas you go to some of the other bigger events and you are playing on the same terrain each game. So we try and model it.
It's such a double-edged sword, that process.
Yeah.
It can be
And we've
really, really
debated
awesome and really bad.
Yeah. We have debated it a lot on air, off air, or around making those decisions. We do try and model it somewhat on the ETC with having 3 different kinds of levels of the amount of terrain that are on tables. So we have...
The heavy, light, and medium, essentially.
Okay, I was going to say sparse, and I was trying to think of another word for sparse because I don't like that word because I don't think it is sparse. So, we'll go heavy, light, and medium. How's that? So some of our city tables are quite full on as far as terrain goes. And then there's some which are lighter, which were lovingly called Planet Bowling Ball at Masters.
Yeah.
Without the
that's
lovingly
disheartening.
bit.
Yeah, we got that at WATC as well.
Yeah.
It is a bit frustrating in that regard because, like I say, unless you've ever organised an event, you're never going to see it. But the amount of time in the background that goes into
And the thought that goes into
building
it as well.
Ignore building and painting it. I'm talking about we spent 2 full work days just opening tubs, pulling them out, putting them out onto a board, and going, what does this look like? How does it feel? Is there enough? No, let's add something to that one. Let's take that piece off. Oh, this needs another ruin. Let's put that one on. Oh, we need to paint that one. And
Damn, now I've pulled something out of this box. This box doesn't have
ruin
enough.
that one,
And where can I get something for this? And
we basically chopped the guts out of 5 tubs worth of terrain for Masters to basically add to the boards that were there.
And now we're going to need to undo all of that because for First Blood...
No, First Blood's fine.
We've got 4x... Well, potentially we're going to need a lot more boards of terrain. So either we try and reduce the amount of terrain because it's on 4x4s, or somebody has to make a whole heap more between now and First Blood.
I've been thinking about it. I'll talk to you off air.
Okay.
Plans within plans already.
Yeah.
But that's when we start talking about events, because obviously I've just sent all the booking forms off and everything for 2020. Those plans are already happening now to how do we cater for players? How many tickets do I put up for sale? What does that look like?
How many tables do we have access to if we are going to
how many trestle tables?
How many trestle tables? If we are going to need more trestle tables, how are we actually going to transport those trestle tables? Because we have enough room for our boards and for most of our terrain, but not if we have to get trestles there as well. Yeah. How does that work?
And that's it. All the logistics side of it, where you go, you know what? It would have been great to have one more tub of terrain, but we physically couldn't get it there because there is ultimately a limit. And while it'd be great to go, no, we'll just get a bigger trailer, or we'll get a bigger truck, or we'll get a bigger car.
I'm working on that.
It all comes at a cost, and we always try and keep. We've spent 5 years now. We know what it costs for us to run a tournament. We know roughly per head what it costs, and we keep that price as low as we possibly can within the realms of reasonable. And you do the maths on it. The first tournament in Perth was 2002, and it was $50 for a 2-day tournament. When you adjust for inflation over the last 17 years, they should cost about $50 a day. And we've already been told unequivocally by some players that they'd pay that, and then we've had it just as vehemently from the other side going, no, that's too expensive. And then you're left looking at them going, hang on a minute, $50 is...
How much did you spend in paint just on those models?
Well, $50 isn't a tactical squad anymore. Yeah. So it's a really weird paradox to work within, because some players see value in what we do and others don't. and that's the challenge.
So it would be that people spend so much money on their armies. They're like, oh, we've spent so much money. I shouldn't then have to pay money to use them. I mean,
Look, that's
I
definitely.
think people think as well, well, I could do this, so why would I pay money to you to do something that I could organise? So
We've actually had that. We've been told that what we do is easy, so why would I pay to do it?
Something tells you those people aren't the ones helping set up in the mornings.
funnily
And they
enough,
go
no,
and
they're
they
not.
see, oh God, this took 6 of us an hour
Yeah, that's
just to
it.
get the boards out.
Yeah, and I don't think.
And they're also the ones who, when I'm at the end of the event and I'm coming through carrying 6 boards by myself, they still stand in my way and, don't offer to help, but they also don't step out of my way either. So,
And that's probably one of the biggest frustrations, I suppose, because we know, and they can't know, and even the people who come and help, and which we genuinely love and appreciate every time they come and help for whatever length of time they do. Until you actually run a tournament from start to finish and understand all the logistics that are attached to it, you go, oh, cool, we rock up on all the terrains here, and then we play games, and then we go home. And you go,
and the reason we know that people can't know what goes into running an event if you haven't done it is because we had no idea at all.
No. But I get questions like, I talk to Chris, one of the Chris's who organises CanCon quite regularly, and he goes, hey, have you guys ever had to deal with this and whatever this might be? And you go, yep, we've done that, because this is his 3rd year of CanCon, and he's still. Well, he's 2 years behind us, basically.
But it's also one event a year.
Yeah, and so he's like, we do, I think we've got 12 next year, 12 in 2020, and we averaged 10 a year for the last 5 years. And when you actually start thinking about,
Well, that's 1 a month at that point.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, so I don't know many other organisers who've done that many events, let alone in that space of time.
No,
So
I wonder how their sanity levels are.
Yeah, but yeah, it's terrain is a really personal thing, and what people want out of the game influences their opinion on that terrain. And what we want to share feels like the majority of what the Perth community's, most of the people who come and complain about it are good-natured about it and go, hey, that needs more of this or more of that. And then you do that, and they go, cool, thanks very much.
what is the best/worst rules crew you've ever gotten, Mike?
Can I get so many weird ones. I had one today, not even for one of our tournaments. I had another TO ask me, can I give a Chaos Space Marine Demon Prince a relic from the Chaos Demons Codex because of, and then I got about a dozen screenshots justifying why you can. And I sent back one screenshot of the FAQ saying, no, you can't. So I get 80% of the queries we get are people on the day being unsure and wanting validation of their opinion. The really weird ones are the ones that you can never predict because they're a blip. There's something that happens on the fly with 2 specific instances of a rule that contradicts. And yeah, most of the time they're ones you can't plan for or predict for, and you just have to suck it up and hope you're right. And I reckon I'm right, well, at least half the time.
Okay, so we are running a little short on time.
That's
so we're
why
going
I've
to
just
go
stopped.
rapid fire questions,
I
which
thought
is
that's rapid fire
5
for
or
me.
10 word answers. Okay.
I was going to say 25 words or less, but I think
Yeah.
it's about 2,500, so we'll
Yeah.
try.
We'll
try
that
to
was-
we'll
that
try
was
one
sus-
for Emma because she
That was
seems to be the...
succinct for me. Come on.
It was actually under
give it-
5 minutes, and almost a record for you. Emma, when are we going to see you rolling some bones on the table?
That's probably...
Smug mode here.
Why?
Because I've been saying that for years. Just not 40k, because I don't think either of us had handled one beating the other.
That's true. He told me initially that he never wanted me to play his hobby. And you know what? Maybe next year. How's that?
I'm not editing that. That's staying in.
That's going to be the title track.
Also, actually, yeah, while we're on it, Mike, same question.
I have plans to go to either the ATC fundraiser in Feb, I think that is. There's also the Toy Soldier Cartel are running their ITC event in Feb. So hopefully I'm going to get to go to one or potentially both of those. I also got an invite to go out and play with the Mafia next weekend, much like I got the invite from you guys a couple of months back. But one of the guys is going to have to drive me if I'm going out to that. So
Next weekend?
yeah,
You have got
the
Buckley's.
21st, I think it is.
Yeah.
Just
No.
remember, we were first.
And apparently I'm not going to the 21st now.
Okay, filthiest list you've ever used, Mike.
I'd probably say my LVO one. That was
Yeah, I was
probably
about to say the same.
the most hardcore I've ever written, which was Eldar Corsairs in 7th edition. So that
was full
was
of Hornets and stuff.
Hornets, D weapons, mass scatter laser jet bikes. That's probably the grossest. And I remember taking it down to Crags and having several unhappy players with me running 2/3 of it because I hadn't finished painting it at the time.
No Wraith Knight in it, I seem to
No
remember.
Wraith Knight. It was a Lynx, 2 Warp Hunters, 4 Hornets, about 15 jet bikes, and then a Nightwing, 2 Wasps, and some characters on bikes.
It's a worry if you can come up with something filthier than a Wraith Knight in 7th edition.
Oh, I loved
That's
it.
pretty
I had
impressive.
so many... No, everyone who was running... That was the tail end of 7th, and people running Wraith Knights and big super heavies. My army is designed to kill
To
them.
hunt them, yeah, right.
And it worked
Counter
really...
meta.
it worked really well, except for the 2 games. And the 2 games I lost were the 2 games where I didn't face those armies.
Because you faced Orcs or something then. Just
No, it was Tau in round 1, and the guy who beat me, his name's Val. He runs the 40k Stats Center podcast. And the other player who beat me was Lawrence from Tabletop Tactics, and he was running. He did actually have a Wraith Knight, but he seized on me.
Oh, no.
So
It's pretty filthy. Okay, so we mentioned before there's a few kind of groups joining up, Snake Eye Squad, Toy Soldier Cartel, Tabletop Mafia. Did you ever anticipate this growth of teams, and what do you think the positive and negatives of them are?
No, I don't think we did anticipate the growth of teams like this.
it's been awesome to see.
It has. Positives have been that we're seeing, I guess, a lot more community spirit as it's
But
bringing
also
people together.
Internal support, where you're seeing the standard of players get better because they're pushing each other.
Yeah. And I think that was because Toy Soldier Cartel were the first group that I know of that sort of came together, and that was one of their aims, was to try and actually, improve their skills by regularly practicing, that kind of thing. Downsides to it, I think it has created the potential for animosity between those teams, but that's always going to happen.
Well, that's
just
it.
around the kind of personality types of the players.
We also just get
really.
team rivalries,
Yeah, but you can have good-natured team rivalries, and you can
As long as we don't end up in
have-
soccer hooligan territory, it's fine.
I know I'm pretty good at fighting, so they're going to be worried there.
Have you met Jason from the Mafia?
I'll run. I'll run fast.
His knees are shot, you'll be fine.
Youth wins again.
That's another point of Boyle's next
Yep.
event. Mike, favourite model?
Of all time,
Yes.
the current... Well, I've got it as metal, but I suppose it'd be Finecast these days. Avatar of Cain. That model from 2nd edition. I remember that model when it came out. It was
It's the 3-inch tall one.
the one that you still buy to this day from Games Workshop. It was revolutionary for its time. It sucked me wholly and solely into Craftworld Eldar, more so than I ever was prior to that. And to this day, it's still... I've probably got 4 or 5 of that model out in the dungeon. There are 3 that I can think of that are painted. There's at least 1 in the bits box as well that I can think of. And it's, to this day, I think still holds up reasonably well. There's a lot of nostalgia attached to it.
Flip side, worst model ever.
Nagash.
The old school Nagash?
The old school
Oh,
Nagash.
the old one.
It was a giant grinning clown skeleton. And
His
it was,
pimp out game was pretty strong, though. You got to give him that.
look, when you combined it with the goblin green flocked base and the big grinning skull face, it just... The artwork, and it was another Mark Gibbons artwork, much like Mephiston is. And you go, I want that model. And then they gave us the clown face. And I just went, what the hell have you done? There aren't too many misfires these days, thank God. But that one sticks out like a sore thumb in the history books.
There's one that sticks out for us as a whole team. When we gave our award for at Masters, we looked for the most uncompetitive model that we could think of, which is why we ended up with Grey Knights and Land Raiders.
Yep.
Just for the fun of going to a competitive event and say he's the worst competitive model we can think. They're both lovely models, but
I feel personally attacked. My Grey Knights are great.
you're a Grey Knight Land Raider. And we thought when I was in Tactics looking to buy something, and I came across a box of mutilators. And I
Oh,
thought,
yeah.
that's
Look.
unkind in terms of most useless and most hideous models.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed that we haven't seen them updated with the obliterators. But then we haven't really seen obliterators separated out as individual models yet as a box set either. So hopefully we will get a multi-part kit.
Oh, they could look very nice, but the old ones are...
Yeah. Do you remember the original obliterators though?
Yes.
They weren't much better.
No, they were
They
arguably
just weren't
worse.
as bad.
Just one as bad. Yeah, that's shades of how terrible can we be. Yeah.
Steve, you can finish us off here.
Okay, where do you see OBSEC in 5 to 10 years?
I don't do that sort of planning.
Yeah, maybe this is
Emma
an Emma
does.
question.
This is definitely my question. I think. Normally I've got a 5-year plan. I haven't refreshed my 5-year plan. I guess what I would like to see is show reaching its full potential. We're right at the very beginning of where I want that to be. And I would like to see OBSEC being able to go out more rural and remote and being able to have permanent home and being able to kind of go across a range of different gaming systems, where at the moment we are focusing more on the 40K and having...
That's, I suppose, partly because of my hobby, but also partly because of the community at the moment.
It's also partly because there's only 2 of us,
Well, there
and
is
we're
that.
only stretched so thin, and we can only
doing
do
one
what we
thing,
can
doing one thing
well.
compared to trying to do 10 things averagely is, I suppose, the motto here.
So I guess just doing more of what we're already doing, just doing it better.
Would that be expanding to more Games Workshop systems such as Age of Sigmar or Lord of the Rings, or just completely new tabletop systems altogether?
Age of Sigmar's
All
on
of
the
them.
cards for
Yeah.
2020. We've got 3, including show, we've got 3 events across the year that are earmarked as mixed gaming days, where we're going to be working with the Bolt Action community. We're going to be talking to the AOS community. We'll probably run stuff like Kill Team, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, some of those other smaller game systems. And then we'll approach some of the other game systems that are outside of our Games Workshop purview and just kind of see what the communities want. If they're interested in working with us, then awesome. If they're not, that's fine as well. The trick for us is making sure that we do it right rather than just doing it and then screwing it up, basically.
Yeah, I think I would like to see us doing more like regular hobby hangout type things as opposed to only doing events. So things like the Varsity Nights, but at whatever becomes the new OBSEC dungeon when we get that, and doing things for first responders, veterans, police.
We've got a few ideas in that part of the world at the moment, and then hopefully a venue at some point
in the not too distant future, hopefully. Yeah.
Would you think more kind of hobby-based activities, such as like maybe monthly hobby nights or painting nights? Kind of try and expand that aspect of the community as well.
It's just balancing cost at that point, because ultimately that requires space, and that then requires funds to fund it, and that money has to come from somewhere, and then
It becomes a bit difficult as well. So I would like to do definitely more of the hobby nights, and the idea of doing a Saturday night hobby night, so once a month having a gaming night, once a month having a hobby night type thing. But it comes down to, if we're hiring a venue, then, with Outpost, people pay membership and they pay to go along each week. People don't want to pay to go and sit and do their hobby because I can do it at home for free.
It's about how do we make it valuable? How do we add the value there to make it worth spending that money as a consumer to come and do that? And understanding what the community wants out of that. And
which I think is alcohol.
No, it's good. I have one final question before we do, though. I think it would be remiss if we didn't mention from our whole team, and I know we also speak for a lot of community here. We all really do appreciate the effort you guys put in. I think we're lucky to have one of probably the better kind of hobby communities in the world. So we talk to people online and say, you struggle to find a game, you only get pick-up games, or you go to tournaments where it's all knives out and, it's crap terrain and the LVO L and that sort of thing. But we we as a community are really lucky for you guys, and I think everyone in the community really does appreciate your efforts.
Aw, thanks.
And
you
we do
can
appreciate
come
you.
again, even though you have been telling us repeatedly how old we are.
haven't said it for at least 30 minutes.
Steve can come again. It's just Paul who can't. He can sit out
No,
in the
this is
driveway.
good because we'll come. He'll just get more and more demerit points
This
for his
is
next
true.
event, and I can beat him.
Getting that unlucky monkey dice.
Yeah, I was going to say he has to win games before he gets demerit points, though.
Exactly. You're penalising nothing. Can't take my hobby points away from me either.
So, final question for Emma. How's Mike's Warlord coming?
I'm just going to edit this in post. It's fine. So,
Still a pair of legs.
well, now I've actually got a hobby space. I actually have the airbrush sat literally less than 3 feet, 2 feet from me. And once I've moved the last of the kids' toys out of the way, I'll get the booth, and the booth's going to go right there. And then I'm going to actually get some work done on it, because I actually put all of the other projects away today. So the Eldar army, the Drakari army, the Harlequin army that I've just been building stuff with because I've been in a building mood has all been put away. So now the only thing that's in the house for me to build and paint is a Warlord.
I can really sympathise. I am now 4 weeks into gap filling the torso.
Yeah,
And I just want to shoot myself.
see, I've done all that.
God, I mean, I remember as she came up on the live streams, Emma, a while ago, you asked me when I put it together how well it fit,
Yeah.
and talked about how well the fit was. I thought it was good until I got the milliput out, and now, oh my god,
Yeah,
it's
the torso's a nightmare.
I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm hoping by Christmas to have the torso finished, but just this last month has been.
Now, do you mean this Christmas? Because
I
I found
will-
you do have to be specific with gamers.
I'm not touching any other project, and I want to be taking Eldar to trying to get to Nova next year, and I want to take Eldar,
Yeah.
so I have to get this done and then an Eldar army done in between. So I've given myself until 1st of April, which may become 1st of May.
2022.
2021.
Well, on that note, like I say, I'll think about that overnight and whether I edit that in post. Thank you very much for coming along, guys, and for asking all these questions. I feel like there's a few questions you didn't get to ask because we
ramble.
we do. So maybe we have to
didn't get halfway.
We'll have to maybe do another one of these episodes in the new year, and have you guys back again if you're interested in coming and joining us again. In the meantime, we're going to thank you very much for coming out, and really appreciate the opportunity to share some of our thoughts from the community you've asked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for having us, guys. This is a long time coming. Yeah, we really enjoyed it. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for just sharing just what makes you guys you.
Oh. And what makes our household completely insane.
With the dogs,
I maintain happy.
So,
Did you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Keep up the good work.
Keep doing what you're doing, really.
well, I will wrap up then by saying tickets are available for First Blood for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And the ITC tickets are up for April, as well. The rest of the players' packs and the tournament tickets for the first half of the year will be up in the next few days, hopefully. We are going to be working on AOS for the February event with some of the patrons next. Thank you to everyone who supported us for 2019, because this will be the last episode before the end of the year, I think.
This will...
Will it?
No, we'll have one episode that will
Between
go
Christmas
out
and New Year's.
on New
Oh,
Year's.
God, that's going to be a hell to record.
That'll be good. No problem.
It might be a short one, that one. So thank you very much to everyone who's asked these questions. And if you have any more, I'm sure that you can get in touch with Steve and the guys at Snake Eyes Squad and hassle them and add them to the list for the next episode. When that will be, who knows. But until then, I think we're done. Thanks for listening. We'll see you for the final episode for 2020 or 2019. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, as you said, thank you very much to everyone who's been part of the Objective Secured community over the last 5 years. We are wrapping up for 2019 now. We've done the last of our events for this year.
Yep.
So, whatever game you enjoy playing, I hope that Santa is very kind to you in a week or two, however long that is, and happy gaming.
You've been listening to the Objective Secured podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, you can visit our website, objectivesecured.com.au. You can find us on Facebook, Facebook/Objective Secured, or you can email us, obsec@optusnet.com.au. Thanks for listening.